Yeah, Sixth Master Chen didn't expect a guest to arrive so suddenly. He's quite impressive. As soon as he reached the base, he wanted to help out. Being young is truly a blessing. So much energy and vitality. Knowing that Lin Shi came to the Chun clan base this time to eliminate primal beasts, he understood. Since you've come from so far, I'll arrange your accommodations first. I need to report this to the elders in the base first. Sixth Master Chen thought to himself. After receiving Lin Shi's consent, Sixth Master Chen quickly headed to the registration office. He loudly called out to Chen Jing, who was lurking in a corner. Get over here. Chen Jing jumped in surprise. The new resident registration list he was holding fell to the ground. He quickly picked it up, crumpled it into a ball, and stuffed it into the mouth of the subordinate next to him. After glaring at his subordinate, Chen Jing ran over to Sixth Master Chen with a squinty-eyed smile. Sixth Master, I'm right here. What do you need? I'm leaving this place to you. If anyone comes, tell them to wait. Sixth Master Chen pointed at the registration office sign. Understood. Don't you worry, Sixth Master. Leave it to me. Chen Jing thumped his chest loudly, hiding his panicked expression. Kid, are you up to something shady? Sixth Master Chen looked at Chen Jing sternly. Chen Jing replied seriously, No, sir. Sixth Master, you've watched me grow up since I was a child. How would I dare do anything bad? Sixth Master Chen didn't ask further and returned to the room. Senior, this way. The inner city has mental power scanners and sirens. Once you're inside, Senior, please try not to use your mental power over long distances. Lin Shi followed Sixth Master Chen into the inner city. The inner city was divided into several zones. Zone D, Zone C, Zone B, and Zone A. Civilized, indeed. Zone D is the slum area, also known as the Pauper District. Zone E is where ordinary Chun clan members and the relatives of those with power in the base live. Zone B is for the direct lineage of the Chun family and Level 4 evolvers. Zone A is the central district. No one except core personnel is allowed inside. Residents can only move down to lower zones. For example, someone from Zone B can enter Zone C, Zone E, and the outer city, but they cannot enter Zone A. People from Zone E are only allowed to operate in Zone D and the outer city. In the inner city, the class hierarchy is very clear. Sixth Master Chen informed Lin Shi that Zone E was entirely populated by people from the Xia country. When the base was built, Xia people living nearby were accepted without any screening. This was the decision of several high-ranking leaders of the Qin family. After all, preserving Xia bloodlines abroad isn't easy. Therefore, this group, even if they don't go on missions, is still provided with enough food and won't freeze to death. When speaking of Zone D, Sixth Master Chen's face showed clear contempt and disgust. He led Lin Shi around Zone D and straight to Zone B. Sixth Master Chen brought Lin Shi to a tin-roofed house. Lin Shi looked over. Dozens of tin houses were lined up in a row. Sixth Master Chen took a large bunch of keys from his pocket. He searched through them, found a smaller ring, took out one key, and opened the door. I apologize for the humble temporary quarters, Senior. I'll have someone bring over your daily necessities shortly. Sixth Master Chen spoke politely. Lin Shi didn't find it inconvenient at all. In this apocalypse, having a place like this was already considered extremely luxurious. After handing over the keys, Sixth Master Chen said he had to leave. Before going, he reminded Lin Shi that except for Zone A, he could move freely anywhere else. The path out is quite late, so avoid Zone D in particular, and don't use your mental power recklessly to trigger the alarms. With that, he hurried away. This house was well built and fully equipped with electricity and water. The master bedroom even had a water heater. The first-floor kitchen had a gas stove and stainless steel utensils. Such a comfortable life was rare in this apocalypse. Lin Shi took the master bedroom. Lin Siyuan chose the room next door. Soon, someone brought over their daily necessities, left them at the door, knocked once, and left. Lin Shi brought the items inside. Take whatever you need and get some rest. I'll call you when it's time to eat. Lin Shi told Lin Siyuan. The boy looked very tired. It was already late afternoon, and there was still quite a while before dinner. Lin Siyuan obediently put his things away, made the beds for both of them, and then lay down to sleep out of sheer exhaustion. Lin Shi took the opportunity to process the primal beast meat in his space. Then, using the kitchenware and spices he had stocked up before the apocalypse, he cooked a massive pot of primal beast meat. By evening, Lin Siyuan woke up to the aroma. It wasn't just Lin Siyuan. Lin Shi's small villa was in the northeast corner of the base, and the wind was blowing from the southwest. The entire Zone B could smell that fragrant stewed meat. Anyone who hasn't lived through 3 years of the apocalypse cannot understand how powerful the allure of a large pot of stewed meat is to an ordinary person. When Lin Siyuan came downstairs, he heard a loud banging on the door. Dazed, the boy walked toward the door. "Don't open it." Lin Shi's voice rang in his ear, making Lin Siyuan snap wide awake. Lin Shi was carrying a large pot of meat to the dining table. In his hand, he held a sprig of Sichuan peppercorns that seemed to appear out of nowhere. He gently sprinkled them over the meat. Returning to the kitchen, Lin Shi looked at the still-dazed Lin Siyuan and said, "Wash your face and come eat." Lin Siyuan looked at the door, which was still being pounded on, and went into the bathroom to wash up. When he came out, he saw Lin Shi pouring a ladle of hot oil over the pot of meat. The hot oil made the aroma of the peppercorns explode, blending with the mouth-watering scent of the stewed meat. The sizzling sound and the aroma filled the room. Lin Siyuan swore he had never smelled anything so delicious in his life. Previously, because Lin Siyuan was malnourished and physically weak, Lin Shi hadn't dared to give him food that was too rich. He himself was someone who loved spicy food. It was almost a no spice, no joy situation. Lin Shi took some fresh herbs from his space and sprinkled them on top. The entire pot of stewed meat looked magnificent. If it weren't for the fact that it was level 4 primal beast meat, this dish would look no different from the braised pork from before the apocalypse. Once finished, Lin Shi spoke to Lin Siyuan, who was still entranced by the smell. "Go to the kitchen and scoop 2 bowls of rice. It goes best with this meat." He went to open the door himself. The aroma from inside wafted out, hitting the people standing at the door right in the face. Several elderly clan leaders of the Chun family almost lost their composure, not to mention the younger ones. One young man in particular kept sniffing the air, muttering, "It's passing through, it's passing through." If Chun Liujia hadn't warned the main branch in Sector B and the base's high-ranking officials that a level 6 powerhouse had arrived, they would have stormed in to see what was happening. Lin Shi looked at the 4 elders standing in the front row. The 2 leading them were over 60. One looked kind, while the other had a stern face with thick eyebrows. The one who knocked was that thick-browed elder. The 2 behind them looked to be in their 50s. However, Lin Shi knew better than to judge a cultivator's age by their appearance. All 4 had energy fluctuations no weaker than level 4. Behind them stood 4 young people, 2 men and 2 women, ranging from their teens to their 20s, with energy levels between level 2 and level 3. The thick-browed elder took a half-step forward, his aura imposing. "I am Chun Heli, an elder of the Chun family's law enforcement hall. So this is the distinguished guest old Lu mentioned?" Quite the refined young man. They had been standing at the door for several minutes. As a core elder of the Chun family and a member of the law enforcement hall, the body that managed family rules, even the family head had to show him respect. Though Chun Heli didn't show it, he was already displeased. His tone sounded polite, but the implication was clear. They were the hosts, and Lin Shi was the guest. There was no reason for a guest to keep the host standing outside. Lin Shi only gave a slight nod. "I see. So you're Chun Heli. Is there anything else?" Chun Heli intended to use his age and the Chun family's prestige to pressure Lin Shi, but those words choked him up. It sounded like Lin Shi was asking his name on purpose. He immediately lost his footing, his face turning sour. Another old man quickly stepped forward with a gentler attitude. "Senior, I am Chen Xiefeng. These are the juniors of our clan. We heard of your arrival and came to welcome you." Lin Shi still only gave a slight nod. "I see." His gaze swept over the 8 of them. The 4 young people looked at Lin Shi with curiosity and admiration. Initially, when their elders brought them along, they expected an old master. Seeing that this senior was a young man around their own age, their curiosity naturally intensified. "You've seen me. Now, I'm going back to eat." Lin Shi looked at Chen Xiefeng again. He wanted them to leave. Chen Xiefeng didn't expect Lin Shi to be so cold, not even inviting them inside. This was the Chun family's base, and they were the elders. They had never been treated this way. Chun Heli, even more annoyed, turned and walked away without a word of courtesy. The other old man cupped his hands toward Lin Shi and followed. The two young men and women looked disappointed at missing out on a meal, especially the girl, who followed Chun Heli with a huff. Chen Xiefeng gave a bitter smile, knowing Lin Shi had offended Chen Heli. If it were anyone else, Chen Heli would have exploded, but facing a level 6 powerhouse, he had to endure his rage. Chen Xiefeng didn't want to humiliate himself further. He cupped his hands politely. Then I shall take my leave. I will visit you another day, senior. His words were a polite way of excusing everyone. Lin Shi acted so aggressively for a reason. First, his strength was his capital. With level 7 strength, while not invincible, no one here could truly threaten him. Second, he was a man of vision. With such immense power, to those who dreamed of causing chaos, he was like a divine cannon that could easily annihilate enemies. If they could control his thoughts, it would be like holding a massive power in their hands. To the ambitious, this was a huge temptation, and they would use every means to get close to him. Because of the Amazon issue, Lin Shi planned to stay at the Chun base for a long time. By showing an unapproachable attitude from the start, he blocked most of those with ill intentions, like keeping flies away. As for offending people, a tiger doesn't care if its roar upsets the wild chickens on the same patch of land. If any chicken dared to show dissatisfaction to its face, the tiger could bite it to death at any moment. The 8 people quickly dwindled to 2. Only a large-framed old man and a fat guy remained. The old man was about to say something when the fat guy rushed to his side, poking his round head out. Senior, can we stay for a meal? You brat, shut up. The old man turned and glared at the fat guy, then quickly bowed to Lin Shi. Senior, please forgive us. My junior lacks discipline and was rude. We've troubled you enough today. We'll take our leave. What a joke. The guest didn't even give Chen Heli face. If they stayed, they'd only be asking for humiliation. Chun Jinshin grabbed his son by the collar and dragged him away. If he were a second slower, the fat kid might say something else to embarrass him. Watching them leave, Lin Shi closed the door and returned to the table. Lin Siyuan had already served the rice and was sitting obediently, waiting for Lin Shi. Lin Shi pulled out a chair. The rice is served. Pick up your chopsticks. He told Lin Siyuan. Eat up. Lin Siyuan finally started eating. The boy ate until he was sweating, gulping down water and enjoying the meal. Lin Shi noticed that the boy, who had been gloomy all day because he couldn't find his parents, now had a face flushed from eating, with no trace of sadness left. He ate 3 bowls of rice in a row. The boy only put down his chopsticks when Lin Shi told him to stop. You're still young. Eating too much spicy food will give you a stomach ache. Lin Shi didn't mention that this was level 4 beast meat. To help Lin Siyuan level up, he had eaten quite a bit. When the energy in your body surges during the breakthrough, it will be very painful. If you want more, eat again in a few days. Get a good night's sleep tonight. Lin Shi finished the rest of the meat. He told Lin Siyuan that high-level beast meat helps low-level evolvers absorb energy and strengthen their mental power. Lin Siyuan had eaten a lot of this level 4 meat, more than enough to unlock his 3rd stage genes. As expected, Lin Siyuan would fall into a deep sleep tonight. A level 2 evolver unlocking 3rd stage genes also opens up a mental field, which causes a state of coma during the breakthrough. How many days the coma lasts depends on the individual. Hearing Lin Shi say he could eat more in a few days, Lin Siyuan was overjoyed, looking at Lin Shi with both admiration and attachment. Thank you, uncle. Lin Siyuan intended to wait to digest before bathing and sleeping, but he fell asleep right there in his chair. Lin Shi realized at a glance that Lin Siyuan had begun his breakthrough. With a slight thought, Hua Hua suddenly appeared on the floor. Lin Shi carried Lin Siyuan into the bedroom and said to Hua Hua, he's starting to evolve. Watch over him for the next few days and let me know if anything happens. On the second morning, Lin Shi checked Lin Siyuan's condition, told Hua Hua to keep monitoring, and then left the small villa. Even in the early morning, someone was already waiting outside. Seeing Lin Shi open the door, the person shivering in the snow looked like a snowman suddenly coming to life. He greeted him while running closer. Good morning, senior. It was the guy who was dragged away last night for wanting to stay for dinner. Senior, I'm Chen Xian. I'll be your guide today. Whatever you want or wherever you want to go, just tell me. I'm the one in charge of the communication system in this base. Chen Xian had clearly been standing outside for a long time. His face was covered in white frost, His round face flushed red from the cold, and his nose was running with small icicles that shook whenever he spoke. It looked quite funny. After yesterday's encounter, Lin Shi had left a bad, unapproachable impression on the Chen family. So, when deciding who would handle Lin Shi's daily needs and keep an eye on him, Chen Xian volunteered. No one else wanted this good job. Where is Chen Lu? Lin Shi asked. Chen Xian was stunned for a moment before realizing Lin Shi was asking about Chen Liujia. Oh, Uncle Lu? He went out. He probably won't be back until tomorrow. Because they hadn't agreed on letting Lin Shi help with the Amazon expedition, the Chen family was still divided last night. This morning, Chen Liujia personally rode a tamed beast to find the clan head, Chen Tiankong, to ask for his opinion. According to Chen Liujia, those old farts just nag all day. What can they decide? I'll just go ask Chen Tiankong myself. It's faster than waiting for those old geezers to lay an egg. He completely forgot that he was also one of those old geezers among the Chen elders. So, early this morning, Chen Liujia rode a tamed beast out of the base. Senior, why don't you just relax in the base today? I'll show you the highlights of our base, Chen Xian said, trying to flatter Lin Shi. Lin Shi had no objections. Since he was here, he could come and go as he pleased. Waiting a few days was fine. He was also curious about this Chen base, so he said, let's go. Half an hour later, Lin Shi suddenly regretted nodding so quickly. Chen Xian led Lin Shi into a luxurious building complex with bright neon lights. The architecture was incredibly lavish, even more exquisite than the Sector B villa where Lin Shi stayed. Even during the day, the hallways were brightly lit. Senior, this place has many mental sensors, way more than our sector. It's fine if they're triggered, though. It's just a bit noisy. Chen Xian warned Lin Shi. Given Lin Shi's status, if he wanted to cause trouble, Chen Xian couldn't stop him. But he still had to give the warning. Lin Shi nodded in understanding. He wasn't unreasonable. He didn't fear trouble, but he didn't go looking for it either. Acting cold and intentionally causing trouble were two different things. Seeing Chen Xian so cautious, he became even more curious about this place. Soon, Chen Xian led Lin Shi into a luxurious room. The room was carpeted from the entrance inward. Right at the door was a half-body relief carving, followed by crystal chandeliers, leather sofas, and a minibar. Lin Shi's expression shifted from curiosity to suspicion, and finally turned pitch black within 3 seconds. Chen Xian, this fat bastard, had actually brought him to a brothel. Senior, this is the most special place in our base. Whatever style you like, they have it. The service here is top-notch. You can even customize the scenarios and characters to your liking. For example, the overbearing empress loves me, or the girls' dormitory, or even the era of polygamy. Chen Xian continued enthusiastically, completely oblivious to Lin Shi's darkening face. Chen Xian pressed a button, and a second later, 10 beautiful women stepped out from secret doors in the room, each with a different physique. These women were barely wearing enough to cover the essentials. As soon as they stepped out, they naturally struck poses, each showing off her charms. Welcome home, master. Young master. Hubby. 10 sweet voices rang out in unison. Chen Xian looked over the girls with satisfaction, then turned back, expecting to see Lin Shi's pleased face. Instead, he saw Lin Shi remained calm, without a shred of the desire he had expected. Chen Xian was startled, his heart sinking. Senior, do you not like these ones? Let me call another group. Lin Shi glanced at Chen Xian. No wonder he couldn't use mental scans here. This was a place the Chen family set aside specifically for powerhouses to satisfy their emotional needs. Lin Shi's expression returned to normal. He suddenly realized this place wasn't just for satisfying lust. Since entering the building, Lin Shi had noticed the heating system. This building wasn't small, and it was morning, yet the entire heating system was running. This meant it was fully operational. This wasn't the pre-apocalypse era where electricity was nearly infinite. Initially, he thought this was an important facility. Even after discovering it was just an entertainment venue, he remained suspicious. It wasn't that he looked down on entertainment, but after the apocalypse, investing so much manpower and resources into a place like this, if it were just for fun, the Chen family head would be too stupid. Chen Tiankong was certainly not stupid. This was a place he created to win over powerhouses. In the Chen base, most were white, and Americans were generally open and instinctive. To recruit and steal people from free bases, Chen Tiankong created this pleasure district. Chun Xian only introduced a small part of it. In this building, any service a customer could imagine was available. Even needs that went beyond human instinct were fully met. Chun Xian bringing Lin Shi here was at the suggestion of the clan elders. Powerhouses weren't scary as long as they had weaknesses, and sexual desire is a common weakness for most men. If Lin Shi tasted this, he would obediently serve the Chen family. The Chun elders thought it was a great idea, but Lin Shi currently barely had the emotions of a normal person, let alone lust. Furthermore, he was a man of iron will. He would never allow himself to be put in a position where others held leverage over him. Thus, Lin Shi flatly refused. No need. After seeing through Chun Xian's intentions, Lin Shi lost almost all the initial goodwill he had for the fat man. You stay here and play. I'm leaving. After saying that, Lin Shi turned and left. The women in the room immediately looked at Chun Xian in terror. Clearly, they were here with a mission, and since the target had left, only punishment awaited them. Chun Xian had no interest in managing these women. They came here voluntarily for this work because as long as they had looks, they could enjoy everything that was only a dream before the apocalypse. There is never a shortage of those who fear death and cling to life. It wasn't just women, there were men too. After all, there are always special tastes. Seeing Lin Shi walking away quickly, Chun Xian hurried to catch up. Senior, wait for me. Leaving the red light district, Lin Shi wandered around the sector. Chun Xian quickly caught up. Initially, Lin Shi planned to ditch him, but on second thought, the Chun base was full of Chun family members. He'd be watched wherever he went, so he might as well have a guide. He slowed his pace. Senior, how about I take you somewhere else? Seeing Lin Shi wandering aimlessly, Chun Xian's eyes darted around, seemingly coming up with a new plan. I'll just walk around as I please. Also, I'm not into men. If you look at me with that look again, I'll beat you up and hang you on the city wall. I'm sure your clan elders wouldn't dare trouble me over it. Chun Xian quickly suppressed his thoughts and explained himself awkwardly. Lin Shi ignored him. Sector B, outside the red light district, also had some training facilities and beast slaughterhouses. Most of it was residential. Some level 4 evolvers saw Lin Shi's unfamiliar face, and many had a spark of aggression in their eyes. Bullying newcomers is common everywhere. But when they saw Chun Xian following behind Lin Shi, they immediately dropped the idea. After all, the evolvers here were level 4 powerhouses recruited by the Qin family. They didn't dare offend this local snake of the Qin clan. Chun Liujia had only mentioned Lin Shi's existence to the Qin High Command. He hadn't announced a level 6 evolver to the entire base to avoid unnecessary panic. So, no one knew Lin Shi's rank, and they couldn't sense his energy fluctuations. Only because of Chun Xian's status did they not dare approach. It was lucky Chun Xian was there. Otherwise, several people might have died in the Chun base today. Sector B wasn't large, and Lin Shi finished his walk quickly. Now in Sector C, Lin Shi headed towards Sector D outside the fence, but Chun Xian stopped him. Senior, that's the slum ahead. It's filthy and there's nothing to see, Chun Xian said with the same look of disgust Chen Liujia had shown yesterday. The Chen family doesn't like Sector D. If you don't like them, why did you take those Xia people in the first place? Lin Shi asked back. Chun Xian avoided his gaze, stammering. Lin Shi ignored him and walked straight into the sector. Chun Xian had no choice but to follow. Sector D was filled with low, cramped single-story houses, like the temporary shacks built next to construction sites before the apocalypse for seasonal workers. These houses were joined together, almost without windows, only doors. From a distance, they looked like wooden boxes stacked on top of each other. Hundreds of meters of road were lined with these old, cramped, crowded cement rows, making the pathways incredibly narrow. Snow piled on the ground. Because it had been trampled for so long without being cleared, it was pitch black and slippery. Most doors were tightly shut, though occasionally one would crack open slightly, revealing a pair of dull eyes behind it, quickly sizing up passers-by. The air was thick with the stench of long-accumulated waste and other distinct odors. There weren't many people around, but everyone had their hands in their pockets, faces buried in scarves or makeshift rags, walking hurriedly. Lin Shi and Chun Xian were dressed neatly and cleanly, making no effort to hide their composed demeanor which stood in stark contrast to the entire area. After walking for a while, Lin Shi noticed over a dozen pairs of eyes watching him. Lin Shi was all too familiar with the feeling of being scrutinized by malicious eyes. "Senior, maybe we should leave. There's nothing good here, just a bunch of fools and peasants." Chun Xian looked around a few times and moved closer to Lin Shi, his eyes showing worry. Lin Shi said nothing. He intended to walk straight through to see the outer city. As for those malicious gazes, as long as they didn't seek death, he didn't mind letting them slide this time. Though Sector D was within the inner city, it was practically abandoned by the rest of the base. The entire area, except for the border with Sector C, had no patrols or guards. People here were only allowed to go to the outer city, not other sectors. They were like prisoners in this area. When Lin Shi and Chun Xian reached the center of Sector D, someone finally couldn't hold back anymore. A dozen masked men rushed out from alleys and houses, surrounding Lin Shi and Chun Xian. "You two, hand over everything you have, and we'll let you go." Among the dozen or so men, the weakest was level 2, and there were even 5 level 3s. No wonder Chun Xian was worried. He was only level 3 himself. If he faced this group alone, Chun Xian would surely suffer heavy losses. As for revenge, it wasn't like Chun family members hadn't been robbed here before. Robbers usually hid the loot or took it to the outer city immediately. The outer city had a black market, a very chaotic place. Once items went in there, they were hard to find. Furthermore, there was no surveillance here. Even if there was, it was quickly sabotaged. Everyone was masked, making it hard to find the culprits. Even if they found and killed 1 or 2, others would just take their place. Once, a Chun family member was even killed here. That time, the Chun High Command was furious and killed many people, but before long, the place returned to how it was. As long as they didn't wipe out the sector, this would keep happening. However, this area was protected by a powerful elder of the Chun family. Every time they wanted to deal with it, a group of people would vehemently protest. In the end, nothing was resolved. The best way was for outsiders to stop coming here and let them kill each other. Most survivors in this area were scoundrels who lived off the base's relief food. They lived miserable lives, fearing death more than life. They didn't participate in building the base, nor did they want to go out and hunt. They only knew how to rape women, bully the weak, steal relief food, and some even secretly killed and ate people. Anyone with a shred of humanity or ambition had long since left for the outer city. Although they had to do daily missions there, the living conditions were much better. Those who stayed only knew how to steal and rob. Just like the group surrounding Lin Shi and Chun Xian now, the poorest and most vicious in the sector. The group surrounding them wasn't entirely made of Xia people. Lin Shi noticed this by their skin color. There were quite a few white people. Every Xia person allowed into the base was permitted to bring 1 person with them. So, over half of this sector was Xia people, and the other half were the people they brought along. Chun Xian was a bit tense entering Sector D. Luckily, he wasn't stupid. Normally, he'd bring several bodyguards. He only dared to come here alone today because he was with a big shot. Stepping out from behind Lin Shi, Chun Xian stood with his hands on his hips and shouted, "I am Chun Xian of the Chun main branch. Beside me is a guest of the base. If you don't want to die, get lost. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll spare your lives." Hearing it was the Chun family, many hesitated. Last time they attacked a Chun member, many died. Sector D occasionally had level 3 evolvers from the outer city coming for work, so they didn't necessarily want to offend the Chun family. Though the Chun family wouldn't wipe out all of Sector D, if they offended them, who knew if they'd survive? Chun Xian was smug. Clearly, the Chun name still carried weight. Just then, a masked man in black stepped out from the crowd, holding a gleaming long sword. "What Chun family? You talk about righteousness and saving your compatriots, but in reality, you leave us to rot. If you really cared about your people, why do you only give us this tiny bit of food every day? Don't think I don't know. It's the leftovers from Sector B. Do you think we're beggars?" The man's words immediately drew support from those around him. "That's right. The Chun family brought us here just to take the credit, but they treat us worse than dogs." "Exactly. They force our women to have kids and call it saving the bloodline." "Bullshit. Yeah, they treat us like livestock. If you're so brave, kill us all." The insults grew nastier. Lin Shi quickly understood a few things from those curses. It turned out that originally, There were few Xia people in South America. The Qin base was far from the Xia homeland and didn't know the current situation there. A Qin elder had proposed preserving the Xia bloodline. After the apocalypse, the Qin family had abandoned the 1,000-year-old rule that the 4 great families couldn't marry outsiders. Now, where would they find people from other great families to marry? Should they rely on inbreeding within the Qin family? If they married white people, who would own this base in 100 years? No one knew. After discussion, a Qin elder suggested letting these Xia survivors have children and handing them over to the Qin family to be raised. The Qin family would raise these children as core members. When they grew up, they would marry into the family to maintain the Qin bloodline. So, the only task for survivors in Sector D was to have children, as long as they were pure Xia, not mixed. However, as time passed and the base grew more crowded, and since the Qin base had no icebreakers, even though they could fish and hunt beasts, the food supply was limited. So, it went from full rations to just leftovers. The scene of meat rotting behind vermilion gates while corpses lined the road didn't just happen in prosperous times. Even the Qin High Command and the elite evolvers they recruited couldn't maintain their old lifestyle. Leftovers, scraps, and the tough vegetables grown by the base all became the food for Sector D. Thus, the people of Sector D grew resentful. Here, killing a woman was strictly forbidden. The punishment for killing a woman was heavier than killing a Qin family member. So, women were treated much better than men. But the base didn't oppose forcing women, as long as they had children. To the Qin family, how the children were born didn't matter. Because of this, even though Sector D was chaotic, the Qin family didn't purge the area. Qin Xian had been hesitant earlier because this wasn't a glorious matter for the Qin family. In the tense atmosphere, the circle slowly tightened. These people were all holding small knives, blades, or ropes. Qin Xian couldn't out-argue so many people. Seeing them about to strike, he could only call out to Lin Shi, "Senior, these people." Lin Shi's foot moved slightly. Before anyone could react, he suddenly vanished. When he reappeared, he was clutching the throat of the masked man in black who had spoken first. Simultaneously, the man's right arm was twisted at an unnatural angle. The man collapsed in pain. Argug! The man in black tried to struggle free with his good left hand, but Lin Shi's grip wasn't so easily broken. If you feel you're being treated unfairly, then leave. Since you stayed, you might as well be pigs. You want to have your cake and eat it too. Acting like a saint while being a coward who harms others for personal desire. Tell me, do you deserve to die? Lin Shi utterly despised this kind of person. The Qin family's methods were indeed questionable, but there's no such thing as a free lunch. They only fed this crowd because they could use them. From the start, the Qin family never restricted their freedom. Anyone with a bit of backbone could go to the outer city or even leave the base, just like Jack's group of wanderers who could support themselves. Since you're cowards who cling to life, don't use the world's unfairness as an excuse for evil. Lin Shi was about to snap the man's neck when a nearby door flew open, and a white woman came running out like a madwoman. "Please, don't hurt him." Lin Shi looked at the woman's face and was startled. He had seen her before, in Lin Siyuan's house, in the family photo. "I beg you, spare him. Without him, I can't survive." The woman rushed over, trying to grab Lin Shi's clothes, but he dodged, and she fell flat on the ground. The people around didn't dare move. They hadn't even seen Lin Shi's movements clearly. Their leader had been captured. No one here was stupid enough to not know their place. Clearly, they had messed with someone they couldn't touch. Many quickly backed away, and seeing Lin Shi didn't take further action, several turned and ran. Immediately, the crowd that had surrounded Lin Shi and Qin Xian vanished. Even the few pedestrians on the street disappeared without a trace. Only Lin Shi, Qin Xian, the man in black in Lin Shi's hand, and the woman named Chit remained on the small path. This woman had traces of time on her face, but her skin was still fair, her features delicate, and her eyes strikingly beautiful. Golden blonde wavy hair fell from under her hat. Despite the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, her beauty hadn't faded. Chit crawled up, kneeling on the dirty ground. She kept begging Lin Shi, "Please, don't kill him. I'll do anything for you." The masked man in black, his eyes bloodshot, glared fiercely at Lin Shi, still struggling and ignoring the woman. Lin Shi didn't hesitate. He snapped the man's neck and tossed the body to the ground. The dead man was Asian, meaning he wasn't pure. Chit froze, then burst into tears, her eyes filled with despair. Previously, they said Sector D had good treatment, but that was compared to Xiao women. For the locals here, just being allowed into the base was lucky. Don't dream of special treatment. Without strength, they had to rely on themselves to survive. For Chit, who was older and had already given birth, being a local woman meant relying on a strong man was her best path. But now, her man was dead. From now on, she would be targeted by every man on this street. They would take turns raping her until she died. Thinking of this, Chit trembled, her despair and helplessness making her nearly faint. Chun Xian didn't understand why Lin Shi hadn't left after killing the man, but instead kept staring at this woman in her 30s. Could the big shot really like this type? Chun Xian's eyes widened. To be fair, she was quite beautiful. If she were 10 years younger, she might have been chosen for the pleasure district in Sector C. Lin Shi didn't know what Chun Xian was thinking. If he did, he'd kick the guy to snap him out of his delusions. Lin Shi looked at the woman and asked, "What is your name?" Chit was stunned for a moment before realizing Lin Shi was asking her. Her eyes flickered with hope. "My name is Chit." Thinking Lin Shi was interested in her, she quickly crawled a few steps closer, trying to force a charming smile. To her surprise, Lin Shi backed away in disgust, warning her, "Stand up. Don't get so close." Chit obeyed and stood up. "Follow me." Lin Shi led the woman out of the sector. Fortunately, they met no obstacles, and the three of them successfully reached the border between the inner and outer city. Once there, Lin Shi stopped and looked at Chun Xian. "I have something to say to her." Chun Xian was very tactful. "Senior, then I'll wait for you at the outer city gate. Just call me when you're done." After Chun Xian walked away, Lin Shi used his mental power to seal off the surrounding area, then looked at Chit, who still appeared anxious. "I ask you answer. Be honest, and I'll reward you." When she followed Lin Shi out of Sector D, she was both happy and worried. Now hearing that Lin Shi had no other intentions, a flash of disappointment appeared in her eyes. But she immediately looked up with a sincere expression. "Please ask away. Where are you from? How many in your family?" "My home was in Lucerne, Oncoa province. Because of a sudden accident, we had to come here for shelter." Realizing she was talking too much, Chit hesitated. "There were 3 of us, my lover, our son, and me." Lin Shi's eyes flickered. "Your lover and son?" She nodded. "We struggled to reach the base, but they wouldn't let us in. At that time, 2 Xia neighbors we knew said they could bring 2 people in. But there were 3 of us. At that time, there was no other way, so my husband let me take our son in first. I thought all the nightmares would end here. On the contrary, it was the beginning of a nightmare." Chit remembered her sorrows and couldn't help but cover her face and sob. "I only have 1 child. Where is he?" Lin Shi stared at Chit and asked. "My son, he's gone." Chit's eyes darted away. She was clearly lying. Lin Shi's face turned cold, and a tangible killing intent weighed down on Chit. "Do not lie to me. Do you want to know the consequences of lying?" Lin Shi had killed countless people. As soon as his aura flared, Chit's legs went weak. She felt like a wild beast was closing in, and in the next second, it might rip her throat out. Panicking, she cried, I'll tell you everything. I took Gino to Sector C. I heard the living conditions were better there. He was too young to live with me, and I couldn't bring him with me to my lover. So she had sent the boy, Gino, to Sector C, the pleasure district. That place served not just women, but met every need of high-level evolvers, whether normal or twisted. Lin Shi initially felt some pity for this woman because of Lin Siyuan. Now, it had turned entirely into disgust and contempt. Lin Siyuan not finding his family was actually the best outcome. Lin Shi had nurtured Lin Siyuan to make him advance quickly so he could use him. He didn't expect to find this woman today, someone from the family that influenced Lin Siyuan. The appearance of this woman disrupted his plans. Lin Shi narrowed his eyes. Although he hadn't asked about Lin Siyuan's background, he could guess that Lin Siyuan was likely the adopted son of some family. He just didn't expect that the mother Lin Siyuan always missed was someone like this. Her name was Chit, and she sold herself to survive. What else could he say? But she had sent her son, not even 10 years old, into a brothel. Everyone knew what the fate of a 10-year-old boy in such a place would be. She truly deserved to die. Lin Shi's eyes were icy. Oh, I didn't want it to be like that. but I wanted Gino to survive. I just wanted both of us to live. Chit knew what her son would face and sobbed uncontrollably. Lin Shi looked at this woman, a flash of killing intent in his eyes. Killing her right now and leaving the Chun base so Lin Siyuan would never know seemed like the simplest and most beneficial choice. Lin Shi stood there, letting her cry for a while. Finally, he withdrew his killing intent and said, "Let's go. Come with me to Sector C." Chit's eyes showed both fear and joy. Lin Shi called Chun Xian, and the three of them headed back to Sector C. Since meeting this woman in the Chun base, Lin Shi couldn't just kill her. There's no such thing as a perfect secret unless he wiped out everyone in the base. Otherwise, he couldn't be sure that a stronger Lin Siyuan wouldn't find out later. He didn't want this matter to trouble Lin Siyuan, nor did he want to violate his principle of not killing the weak, who bore him no ill will. Moreover, this woman's attitude toward Lin Siyuan was worth considering. If Lin Siyuan knew this was a woman who could send her own son to a brothel, he would surely not make a foolish choice. The corner of Lin Shi's mouth curled slightly. Chit was still immersed in the joy of Lin Shi saying he would get her son Gino out of the brothel. Chun Xian had no idea what was going on. Not only did the big shot have strange tastes, but he also liked, buy one, get one free deals. But this didn't slow him down. Chun Xian quickly led Lin Shi back to Sector C, straight to the brothel management. The manager of this area was also a Chun, but from a branch family. Uncle 31. As soon as they entered, Chun Xian greeted a man in his 40s sitting behind the counter calculating. The man called Uncle 31 narrowed his eyes. He had long hair and a thin face. Likely due to alcohol and women, he had deep dark circles under his eyes. Combined with his pointed chin, he looked quite spiteful. Seeing it was Chun Xian, Chun 31 showed a look of contempt, but when he glanced at Lin Shi following behind, his expression turned serious. Although the other Chun branches hadn't been officially notified of a powerhouse entering the base, because Chun Xian brought Lin Shi to the Pleasure District today, the Chun High Command had warned Chun 31 in advance. He knew the person with Chun Xian was that powerhouse. He already knew about Lin Shi entering and leaving the district earlier. Seeing Chun Xian bring him back, Chun 31 was suspicious, but after years of working for the Chun family, he didn't show it. Chun Xian, what wind blew you here? If your father knew you were here, wouldn't he break your legs? This place was for the enjoyment of high-level powerhouses. Core Chun descendants were strictly raised and not allowed to indulge in lust. Only branch descendants visited occasionally. Though Chun 31 was from a branch, he had been with the family for decades and was already level 4. The Chun family valued strength, so his status was no lower than the level 3 Chun Xian. He didn't need to give Chun Xian face. Chun Xian secretly hated the old man's coldness, but he still had to report to Lin Shi. I'm not here for pleasure. I'm here to find someone. Find who? Everyone who comes here is looking for someone. Chun 31 didn't even look up. I'm serious. Check the records. I'm looking for a boy, 11 years old, named Gino. He came here over 2 years ago, right? Chun Xian turned to look at Chit, who nodded quickly. Chun 31 seemed indifferent, but his movements were fast. He immediately pulled out a stack of files. Opening it, he frowned, his expression shifting. He spoke in a heavy voice. This boy, Gino, he died 6 months ago. Although he was speaking to Chun Xian, his eyes were fixed on Lin Shi. Chit's eyes widened. She let out a cry of no and fainted. No one cared about her falling to the floor. Chun Xian and Chun 31 both looked at Lin Shi nervously, fearing he was looking for someone important and would take his anger out on them. Lin Shi remained calm and only asked, how did he die? Chun 31 looked at the file, intending to find an excuse, but the records didn't just have personal info and origins. They even recorded women's cycles and the time and cause of every death in the district. For the first time, he cursed himself for being so meticulous. Having guessed Lin Shi's status, Chun 31 didn't dare hide it. He was killed by a man named Garrot. He didn't dare say the boy died in bed, but how could Lin Shi not know? Most deaths here were from torture. Some high-level powerhouses had special tastes, and every few days, someone in the district died. I see, Lin Shi replied curtly. Silence hung for 2 seconds. Chun Xian quickly explained. Senior, Garrot is a level 4 evolver from outside the base. He has nothing to do with our Chun family. Let's go. Lin Shi turned and walked straight out. Wake her up. Lin sure didn't plan to go kill Garat. He intended to take Chit back to the villa to wait for Lin Siyuan to wake up. As for how to handle her, he would ask Lin Siyuan's opinion first. If Lin Siyuan wanted her to stay, he'd have nothing to say. Seeing Lin sure wasn't angry, Chen Xian was relieved. He quickly knelt down and pinched Chit awake. Did this woman really think they were blind, faking a faint in front of them? Chen Xian also realized Lin sure had no interest in this old woman. So, his movements weren't gentle. Chit woke up in pain and immediately wanted to cry. Chen Xian barked at her. "Shut up if you don't want to die, and follow us." Chit stopped crying and hurriedly stood up to follow. After abandoning her son in hell for 2 years without a thought, did she really care about him? Actually, she was faking the faint. She did it just to gain Lin Shure's sympathy. In her mind, she and Lin Shure were strangers. If he was willing to help her find her son, he must pity her. As long as she could exploit that, she would definitely live better than before. Lin Shure returned to Sector B, standing before his small house. Chit had been crawling at the bottom for 3 years. She hadn't seen such a clean, beautiful room in a long time. She almost forgot they existed. Since entering Sector B and seeing the clean, exquisite houses, her eyes were filled with ambition. Lin Shure acted as if he didn't see it and let her in. Chen Xian, of course, didn't follow. Back inside, Lin Shure used his mental power to see that Lin Siyuan still hadn't woken up. Hua Hua sensed Lin Shure's presence and poked its head out from Lin Siyuan's room, but it didn't come down because it sensed a strange aura on Chit. Lin Shure pointed to a guest room on the first floor and said to Chit, who was looking around, "You'll stay in this room for the next few days. You can use anything on the first floor, but you are not allowed on the second floor. If you do, don't blame me for being heartless." Lin Shure didn't mention Lin Siyuan was here, nor did he want this woman to know he was on the second floor yet. The first floor had plenty of daily supplies provided by the Qin base. Even if Lin Shure didn't say anything, Chit would have asked. They were all Qin family goods. Lin Shure wouldn't sweat the small stuff with a woman. Besides, she wouldn't be staying long. After speaking, Lin Shure went upstairs. He didn't want to eat with that unpleasant woman downstairs, so he took some pre-cooked food from his space. The time stasis of his space allowed him to eat hot food without cooking. As for Chit, there were some ingredients provided by the base on the first floor. After the initial panic and worry, she fell into a state of pure bliss. She started picking through the supplies, making a mess. Seeing meat, she excitedly ate a few raw pieces, then took some to fry in the kitchen. She even fried a portion for Lin Shure and called him from the stairs to come eat, but he refused and ignored her. In the afternoon, Lin Shure gave Hua Hua some instructions on caring for Lin Siyuan, gave Chit another warning, and went out alone. As expected, he met Chen Xian at the door. This time, Lin Shure went straight to the outer city. The outer city was much larger than the inner city, filled with level 3 evolvers who had come from outside to join. Lin Shure even saw a few level 2s. Chen Xian explained, "Those are registered wanderers who come to the outer city to trade supplies." It turned out, even those not in the base could register temporarily to enter the outer city. But not everyone was allowed. They had to undergo strict registration and provide collateral of a certain value. They couldn't stay overnight and had to leave the same day. If caught staying overnight, not only was their collateral seized, but in serious cases, they could be killed. These wanderers went through the trouble because the outer city had a trading market. The market was protected by the base, allowing for safe bartering. This market was where residents and evolvers in the base traded. Many wanderers who hunted beasts or found good items came here to exchange them for necessary food. Most of this food was for the evolvers in the outer city or Sector D residents. For wanderers, this was a cheap and relatively high-quality option. Using beast meat to trade for grain, depending on the beast's level, they could get 10 or even dozens of times the amount of food. Compared to eating the meat directly, this helped them avoid hunger for much longer. However, trading here was also dangerous. Once they left the base, the protection ended. Surviving and bringing the loot home required both strength and luck. Thus, this place was known as the black market. The residential area was boring, so Lin Shure took a quick look and headed straight for the black market. It wasn't much different from the trading zones he'd seen in the Sand City. People spread tarps on the ground, selling all sorts of junk, from good to bad: moldy corn, electronic parts, broken phones, old clothes. everything. Lin sure didn't need to look long. His mental power swept through and took it all in. Just as he was about to leave, he looked toward an area in the market. He saw a familiar face. About a dozen people were surrounding a stall. The stall owner and a wanderer were haggling fiercely. The owner was a burly white man with broad shoulders. His stall sold various junk and some black-looking items. That was the food grown by the base. The Chun base experts called it suyo. It looked a bit like taro but felt completely different. It wasn't soft, but very coarse, and had a strange smell when eaten, like spoiled pork. So, survivors usually called it stinky yong. 1 flashlight for 1 bag of suyo. No more. This flashlight is almost out of juice. Batteries are expensive now, you know how much they cost. I know, Jack, but this flashlight is much better than a normal one. Look closely, this is a high-intensity LED. Seeing the crowd growing, the white owner grew impatient. Trade or get lost. Fine, give me back my flashlight. I'll find someone else to trade with. Jack was frustrated. He'd worked hard to find someone to trade for Suyong, only to find such a difficult haggler. I said, if you don't trade, then get lost. What flashlight? This is my flashlight. The white owner smirked and snatched the flashlight from Jack. Jack's eyes widened in disbelief. That's my flashlight. You say it's yours? How can you prove it? How would a ragged wanderer like you get a flashlight? This is clearly mine. Kid, my brother is the captain of the Outer City Patrol. He gave me this flashlight. Is there a problem? The owner wasn't just robbing him. He was flaunting his backing. This was a blatant threat. Jack's heart pounded with rage. Last time, thanks to Lin Sure, he got some beast meat, but because he was low level, he didn't dare come to the black market. He ate it himself and managed to unlock his level 3 genes. After reaching level 3 and feeling his strength, he hurriedly called a few friends to the black market to trade for some food. At the same time, he wanted to learn the way into the outer city and gather some news. Who knew that as soon as he arrived and found what he needed, he'd meet someone trying to steal his flashlight. Hearing the owner say his brother was a patrol captain, the onlookers looked at Jack with pity. Someone kind-hearted whispered, "Just leave. His brother is a captain. You can't afford to offend him here. Don't throw your life away over a flashlight." The crowd whispered, "It's just a flashlight. It's not worth your life." What a shame. The kid had good luck finding a flashlight. He probably has other good stuff too. Although the voices were low, Jack heard them all. He frowned. If people thought he had other good things on him, he'd never make it out today. Sure enough, the owner heard the whispers too. He looked at Jack like a hungry wolf eyeing a lamb, greed clear on his face. Jack quickly explained, "This flashlight was given to me by a powerhouse. I only have one." The white owner sneered. Powerhouse? What kind of powerhouse would a peasant like you meet? In your eyes, even a level 1 evolver is a powerhouse. My brother is a level 4 evolver, and he got this flashlight by doing missions for the base. Kid, you're trying to rob me in broad daylight? Do you want me to call the patrol? Actually, he didn't need to call. Seeing the crowd growing, a patrol was already approaching. What's going on? Seeing the patrol, Jack bit his lip and tried to explain. Officer, this man won't trade and stole my flashlight. Please, give me justice. After seeing who it was, the owner's face relaxed. Officer, this is my flashlight. This wanderer has never seen anything good and tried to rob me. How should we handle this? The patrolman wearing a badge looked at Jack and the owner. When he saw the owner, his expression shifted slightly, and he gave a subtle nod. He turned to Jack. You say the flashlight is yours? Do you have proof? Seeing they clearly knew each other, Jack knew the situation was against him. His voice was dry. Everyone around here can testify for me. The patrolman glanced at the onlookers. They all waved their hands, saying they saw nothing. Even the person who warned Jack earlier turned and left. Before the patrol arrived, the owner's claim about his brother was just a threat. Now that they knew he actually had ties to the patrol, who would dare cross their superior? No one wanted to watch anymore. Only Jack stood there alone. Since entering the city required collateral, only Jack had entered. His companions were waiting at the gate. Jack felt bitter, knowing he wouldn't get the flashlight back today. He could only blame his bad luck. Fine, I don't want the flashlight. After saying that, he turned to leave. He swore he'd never come back here, and he'd never think about the outer city again. What outer city? It was bullshit. Out there as a wanderer, even if life was hard, he was free and treated like a human. Here, with no power or backing, he was just a dog. But even though Jack wanted to leave, someone wouldn't let him. "Officer, this wanderer tried to rob me and then slandered me. We can't just let him go." The white owner's face was twisted with smugness. The officer looked at the owner. The two shared a knowing glance, and then they both lunged at Jack. Jack quickly dodged, instinctively pulling out a weapon to defend himself. He was furious. "You've already stolen my stuff. I have nothing left. Why are you still coming after me? Who knows if you're planning to steal more from me?" The owner sneered. The officer drew his weapon. "You're suspicious. Come to the station for questioning. Resisting an officer only makes your crime worse. Come quietly, or I'll kill you now." At this point, other officers nearby saw the situation and began surrounding Jack from multiple directions. Jack clenched his weapon, his knuckles cracking. He was at his breaking point. "Fine outer city. Fine patrol. I worked so hard to unlock my level 3 genes, and I'm going to die here today." Just as Jack was about to snap, a voice rang out from the other side. "Stop. What do you think you're doing?" Everyone turned to see a fat man. Chun Xian had appeared. Jack no longer expected anyone to believe him or speak up for him. So, he just bit his lip and said nothing, staring at the owner with a look of pure defiance. This man was the cause of it all. Seeing the owner and everyone else distracted by Chun Xian, Jack quietly pulled a gun from his coat. He had gotten it last time. He unlocked his genes, and at such a close range, he aimed straight for the owner's forehead and pulled the trigger. A gunshot rang out, drawing everyone's attention back to Jack. Because he already hated this man so much, he didn't care about his own life. He just wanted to kill the owner first. The owner was definitely stronger than Oga. His reactions weren't slow. He hurriedly tilted his head to dodge, but he couldn't avoid it completely. The bullet pierced through his ear, and the pain made him scream. Kill him. Kill him for me. You want to die?" From behind Jack, someone suddenly attacked. It was the owner's brother, the Black Market Patrol Captain, Oga. Seeing his brother attacked, he kicked the gun out of Jack's hand and swung a blade toward Jack's neck. At the same time, from a nearby stall, a piece of debris suddenly flew up at extreme speed, striking Oga's wrist. A dull thud was followed by the faint sound of bone snapping. Oga dropped his blade and clutched his wrist, screaming in agony. Two of his subordinates, one clutching his head and the other his arm, also began screaming in pain. Lin Shi appeared from behind Chun Xian. He had been hidden by Chun Xian's large frame, so no one noticed there was another person. Thinking he was dead for sure, Jack heard the familiar voice and saw Lin Shi. He cried out, "It's you." Jack didn't expect to meet Lin Shi here. Since the patrol had arrived, the onlookers had moved back, but they were still watching from a distance. There's never a shortage of gossips. People whispered about Lin Shi's identity, thinking the wanderer was dead meat, only for a powerhouse to save him. Is he with that Chen family big shot? Is he a subordinate? Doesn't look like it. To hurt Oga like that, he must be at least level 4. I bet he's a level 4 powerhouse newly assigned from the base. Did you see how Oga was injured? Hearing Lin Shi speak, Chun Xian felt a bit embarrassed. He had shouted for them to stop, yet someone still attacked. These guys treated his words like wind. In front of Lin Shi, Chun Xian didn't dare get angry. He could only offer a sheepish smile. "I'm sorry you had to see this. I'll make sure they're retrained later. Didn't you say the market forbids robbery and theft? But I see these guys robbing people quite openly." Lin Shi looked at the white owner, whose face was full of pain and hatred. The owner sat on the ground in agony, and the flashlight fell from his coat. Lin Shi was the one who gave Jack that flashlight. If he hadn't seen it, he wouldn't have cared where it was. But since it happened right in front of him, he couldn't ignore it. Lin Shi stepped forward, picked up the flashlight, looked at Chun Xian, and said, "This flashlight is mine. I gave it to him. Do you understand? Big brother." Jack was so moved his eyes turned red. Initially, he didn't want to say it was a gift from Lin Shi to avoid causing him trouble. Last time, just by guiding Lin Shi, he had saved his life and gained many benefits. In his heart, he practically worshipped Lin Shi. This time, thinking he was dead, he met Lin Shi again, and Lin Shi even stepped in to help. What kind of powerhouse was this? This was his life's savior. Chun Xian didn't expect a wanderer to have a connection with Lin Shi. He immediately realized the gravity of the situation. "I understand. Don't worry, senior. I will handle this fairly." The Chen family will never tolerate such thuggery. Chen Xian took a communicator from his pocket, dialed a few numbers, and spoke into it. Security. There's a disturbance at the market involving patrol members. Get down here now. Yes, the VIP is here. A moment later, Chen Xian hung up and looked at the white owner as if he were a corpse. The other patrol members looked at each other, knowing a storm was coming. They looked anxious and terrified. Especially the patrolman who had helped the owner frame Jack. He was so scared he collapsed. He immediately knelt and begged Chen Xian for mercy. Lord, spare me. I didn't mean it. Olga told me to do it. Olga was the name of the white owner. The owner glared furiously at the patrolman. If looks could kill, the man would be dead. Chen Xian didn't care who gave the orders. None of these people would escape. Uncle Lu had warned him before leaving to watch out for anyone stupid enough to offend Lin Shi and to use the harshest measures. Uncle Lu was a level 6 powerhouse. Who could stop him if he acted? Soon, Chen Jing, who was in charge of inner-city security, led a squad into the market and surrounded the area. The onlookers were terrified again. The inner-city guard. Those are inner-city guard uniforms. Am I seeing this right? Yeah, even the captain is here. The inner-city guard were all Chen family members, led by the main branch. For outer-city residents like them, they wouldn't see these people once in 6 months. What's happening? Someone stole at the market and got caught by the patrol. Then the Chen family called the whole guard. Chen Jing went to Chen Xian. Kid, what happened? Chen Jing already knew since last night that the relationship between Lin Shi and Old Master Lu was anything but ordinary. Luckily, he didn't say much, or his head might not have stayed on his shoulders. Thinking of this, Chen Jing glanced at Lin Shi. Seeing Lin Shi ignoring him, he suppressed his anxiety and put on a stern face for the job. Chen Xian recounted the events. Chen Jing's jaw dropped. He pointed at the patrol members. Arrest them all. As for these 2 dogs, violating regulations and abusing power, execute them on the spot. Chen Jing drew his weapon and, amidst the gasps of the crowd, beheaded the patrolman kneeling before Chen Xian. Immediately after, he killed the white owner. The owner died with his eyes wide open, unable to believe it. He had done this so many times before without issue. Why not today? Why couldn't his brother save him? Chen Jing sheathed his sword without even a flinch. Once done, he turned to look at the wounded white man. The owner died without closing his eyes, but his brother was much smarter. Lin Shi knew Chen Jing brought the inner-city guards because he was standing next to Chen Xian. The injured white man clutched his arm, standing up in silence as he watched his brother being killed, his eyes swirling with a storm of emotions. Once the market patrol team was fully apprehended, Chen Jing pointed at the white man and ordered, "Arrest him too." The white man's expression shifted, his face twisting into a snarl as his pent-up resentment finally exploded. So what if my brother took something from a mere commoner? You want to come after me too? He was a rank 4 powerhouse, and Chen Jing was only at rank 4 himself. If his arm hadn't been injured, he wouldn't have feared Chen Jing at all. Chen Jing replied, "Rules are rules. Break them, and you pay the price." His voice boomed, echoing throughout the market for everyone to hear. "I am a member of Karis," the white man said in a low, heavy tone, dropping a name. Karis. This was the second time Lin Shi had heard that name. Upon hearing it, a murderous glint flashed in Chen Jing's eyes. "I don't care if you're with the Jade Emperor himself. You're under arrest. If he resists, kill him on the spot." Lately, high-level evolvers from the outside had become increasingly disrespectful toward the Chen family. Chen Jing wanted to use this incident to crush their arrogance and set an example. Chen Jing raised his hand, and the guards immediately surrounded the man. "So Chen Jing is actually serious," the man hissed through gritted teeth. "Just wait. Karis will see that I get justice." Having said that, he didn't resist and allowed the guards to take him into custody. Before being led away, Olga shot a look of pure, murderous hatred at Lin Shi and Jack. He clearly held a grudge against both of them now. However, he had no idea who Lin Shi really was, nor did he realize that if he hadn't directed his killing intent toward Lin Shi, he might still be alive. Lin Shi never bothered with the ants crawling beneath his feet, but if an ant dared to crawl up and try to bite him, he wouldn't hesitate to crush it into dust. Wait. Just as Chen Jing's guards were about to lead Ogo away, Lin Shi spoke up. "Senior, is something wrong?" Chen Xian asked softly. This man dies now. Chen Jing looked at Lin Shi and said solemnly, Senior, the Chen family will. We will provide an explanation to that brother over there. Chen Jing glanced toward Jack. Jack caught Chen Jing's gaze and didn't dare say a word. He didn't even dare call Lin Shi Big Bro anymore. In the Chun base, many high-ranking figures called Lin Shi Senior. How could someone of his status possibly stand above the Chen family? I'm not negotiating with you, Lin Shi said. I'm simply stating a fact. The moment the words left Lin Shi's mouth, he vanished. What? By the time Chen Xian and the others could react, Lin Shi was already standing in front of Oga. In his hand was a bloody head, ripped clean from Oga's body. The guards holding Oga stared at the head in Lin Shi's hand, then instinctively looked back at the man they had just been restraining. Oga, who had been alive just a second ago, was now a headless corpse. The terrified guards let go, and Oga's body hit the ground with a dull thud. Everyone watching in the market was paralyzed with shock. The entire area fell into a deathly silence. Initially, they thought the most shocking thing they'd see was a refugee severely injuring a patrol captain. They never expected it to escalate to the inner-city guards. To their horror, Oga, the man who had always been so arrogant in this area, had just been hauled off like a prisoner. And before they could even process that, this person had killed him. Who exactly was this young man who had been standing behind Chen Xian the whole time, barely saying a word? Chen Jing's face was a mask of astonishment. He was the first to snap out of it. His mind raced as he quickly stepped beside Lin Shi. A fine kill, Senior. We were planning to execute him anyway. You've saved us the trouble. Men, clear the body. Chen Jing barked, startling the dazed guards. They scrambled to pick up the corpse. Lin Shi handed the head to Chen Jing and, without a word, walked straight toward the city. The flashlight Lin Shi had been holding was now tucked into Jack's jacket, something Jack only just realized. As Lin Shi walked away, Chen Xian followed close behind. Chen Jing stayed to direct the cleanup, making a few public announcements about Oga's vehicle explosion and other excuses before leading the rest of his men away. A new patrol team immediately replaced the old one. The market, as if a pause button had been unpressed, instantly returned to its usual bustle. Jack stared at the flashlight in his hand, stunned. Those who had been eyeing him earlier didn't even dare look his way now. Jack stood there in a daze, clutching the flashlight. Some people even cast looks of envy and longing at him. One shopkeeper approached him proactively, politely asking if Jack still wanted to trade the flashlight. He offered 2 full baskets of to-do fruit in exchange. That price far exceeded the flashlight's actual value. Jack snapped out of it and declined. The shopkeeper wasn't angry. Instead, he gave Jack a to-do fruit for free and told him to come back next time. He promised the prices would be absolutely fair. It wasn't just this shopkeeper. Many others acted the same way. In an instant, the entire market seemed to have become a much friendlier place. Jack knew better. It wasn't that they had suddenly grown hearts. They were terrified of Lin Shi, the man who had just helped him get his flashlight back. This was all thanks to Lin Shi. This was the influence of the strong. Jack carefully tucked the flashlight into his pocket. He didn't want to trade it. He wanted to keep it to remember this day. One day, he would become a powerhouse like that, someone who could set the rules or break them. Jack bowed deeply toward the direction Lin Shi had gone, then turned and left the market. To Lin Shi, helping Jack was a trivial matter, nothing complicated. He had just been taking a stroll, saw someone bullying Jack, and helped him out, while dealing with someone who dared show him killing intent. It was like a boss walking through a park. If he saw a familiar dog being bullied by others during his walk, he'd just shout a few words to chase the others away and then continue on his way. It was as simple as that. He wouldn't care about such a minor detail, and neither would Lin Shi. Chen Xian took Lin Shi back to the reserve, whispered a few words, and then went back to find his father. To Lin Shi, killing the driver of the gas truck was a trivial matter, but to them, it was anything but. The base had been built for over 2 years, and the Chun family in South America had recruited many outsiders who had evolved. At first, these awakened were chaotic. But since one person appeared, they gradually formed a small group. That person was Karis, the one Oga mentioned before he died. Karis joined the base when he was only a level 4 awakened. Fortunately, he happened to find a mutant plant in the wild that boosted mental strength and broke through, unlocking his level 5 genes. He was the only outsider in the base to reach level 5. After Karis unlocked his level 5 genes, many level 4 outsiders flattered him, gradually forming a group led by him. All members were outsiders. Although they outwardly followed the Chun family's orders, Karis's group often plotted behind their backs. The white shopkeeper breaking the rules and stealing the flashlight today was a prime example. Especially since Qin Shikuang had been gone for 2 months in the Amazon. These people were becoming more and more brazen. Karis himself was crossing lines. Chen Lujia didn't like managing things, always saying to wait for the patriarch. There was a lack of discipline. Lately, they had become increasingly defiant. This time, a core member under Karis was killed, and Chen Lujia wasn't at the base. If Karis caused trouble, they had to be prepared. By the time Qin Xian found his father, the entire Qin family leadership already knew what happened this afternoon. Currently, the high-ranking members of the Chun family in the base were gathered at Chun Heli's villa. Chun Xian wasn't qualified to join such a meeting. He could only wait outside with other young members of the main branch for the elders to finish. Qin Xian, how does it feel to spend the whole day with a level 6 powerhouse? A young girl in a white coat suddenly asked. Chun Xian's face turned red, and he instinctively replied, "It was great. I was his guide all day." The powerhouse was very satisfied. He even invited me to dinner. Yeah, right. Several young Qin family members laughed. Only you? A level 6 powerhouse would invite you to dinner? Who do you think you are? Or does he just like small animals and wants to feed a pig? Chun Xian is definitely bragging. This kid has bragged more than once or twice. Even my great-grandfather couldn't meet him. This fat kid got invited? Is he dreaming? Chun Xian knew they would mock him. He was used to it. Chun Jiansheng had the lowest status in his generation of the Qin family, not because of poor strength. Most middle-ranking members of the Chun main branch were only level 4 awakened. It was because of his status. Previously, his father belonged to a side branch of the Qin family. Over 10 years ago, during a mission, he performed a great feat and was given the chance to learn meditation. Unexpectedly, this opportunity allowed Chun Jiansheng to master it. According to family rules, side branch descendants who master meditation can be promoted to the main branch. So, he and his father moved to the main branch compound in South America over a decade ago. But even though Chun Jiansheng learned meditation through talent and broke through level 3 and 4 genes before the apocalypse, he was still looked down upon by those born into the main branch. Because the Chun main branch only had a few branches, the population was small, and the bloodline was precious. The rate of descendants awakening meditation was much higher than average. Meanwhile, side branch members were spread all over the world. To put it bluntly, anyone named Chun was a side branch member. In the eyes of the main branch, they were just servants. How could Chun Jiansheng, who joined suddenly, be respected? Thus, Qin Xian had been looked down upon since childhood. Take the task of guiding Lin Shi, for example. Knowing Lin Shi was difficult, none of the Chun descendants wanted the job. Only Qin Xian took it. When they saw him volunteer, they thought he was desperate. But in reality, if no one took it, it would have fallen on him anyway. Better to take it voluntarily and build some reputation. "You guys are making too much noise," a red-haired youth said. "A loser from a side branch is still a side branch loser. He'll never amount to anything." Xiao Shui. Stop asking him. What truth could someone like him tell? Xiao Shui was the girl who had just asked Qin Xian. Her name was Qin Shui, and she was the one Qin Xian had a crush on for years. But he didn't dare say a word to her. It would only invite more ridicule. Then Qin Shui would also be looked down upon by the other descendants. Qin Xian was used to how others treated him. He only cared what Qin Shui thought. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'm telling the truth. Believe it or not." The red-haired youth sneered, about to mock him further. Just then, the villa door opened. The Chun family elders walked out one by one, their faces beaming with pride. Qin Xiefeng happily walked toward the youngsters and looked at the most promising ones. "What are you all talking about so happily?" The red-haired youth, as if waiting for the question, said loudly, "Chun Xian is bragging that a level 6 senior invited him to dinner." The elders who were walking out all stopped. Every eye turned to Qin Xian. The red-haired youth smiled triumphantly, wanting to see Chun Xian scolded like a dog. Several elders frowned at Chun Tuan, ready to scold him. Chun Jiansheng quickly rushed to the boy's side, grabbing him by the collar. He's just a child who doesn't know any better. That's enough talk. Don't make the elders laugh at us. I'll take him home and discipline him myself. He tried to lead Chun Tuan away quickly. Wait, Chun Heli said, stepping out from the group of elders with a grim expression. Who gave you permission to play such a prank? You're just a third-rank junior, yet you dare toy with a sixth-rank powerhouse. Who gave you the nerve? Was it you, Chun Jinli? Do you realize the weight of your crime? The other elders glanced at each other, sensing Chun Heli was about to explode, and quickly pulled their own children away. Chun Jinli stood dazed, knowing that yesterday's rejection and today's discussion had left Chun Heli in a foul mood. The elder needed someone to vent his frustrations on, and he was the perfect target for that rage. Chun Jinli resigned himself to take the blame. I'm not joking. This time, Chun Tuan didn't hide behind his father. Instead, he broke free from Chun Jinli's grip and stood in front of him, blocking his path. I'm not joking. The senior invited me to have dinner at his place. His voice was strong and filled with confidence. Meanwhile, Lin Shi returned to the small villa. Ji was busily cleaning the first-floor hall, and seeing him return, she greeted him warmly. Lin Shi gave a brief nod and said, "We have a guest for dinner tonight. Clean that meat and slice it all thin." Lin Shi pointed to the pile of meat brought from the Qin clan base. Ji was overjoyed and nodded repeatedly. "Leave it to me. Just leave the water there. I'll handle everything else." Lin Shi added, "I know how to cook too. Let me handle the rest for you. You just wait to eat." Because Lin Shi was letting her cook, Ji felt as if she had been officially appointed as the lady of the house, eager to show off. Lin Shi's voice turned cold, ignoring the foolish vanity of this strange woman. "I've said it once. I don't want to repeat myself." With that, he went upstairs. Ji took a few deep breaths before returning to the kitchen with the meat. Lin Siyuan still hadn't woken up. Lin Shi observed him, confirming there were no issues, then took some seasoning packets and herbs from his space before heading back downstairs. Ji had finished slicing the meat, and Lin Shi promptly sent her out of the kitchen. He marinated the meat himself, then simmered it according to an old recipe. When Lin Shi brought the pot to the table, Ji's eyes were glued to it. "What is this? It smells incredible." Lin Shi didn't answer. He set the pot down, and seeing Ji about to reach in for a piece, he spoke up. "If you don't want to lose that hand, I suggest you don't touch it." Ji quickly pulled back. In the apocalypse, having food was enough. There was no need to be picky. Eating with one's hands or eating raw meat was common practice, and she was used to it. As if they had caught the scent, a knock sounded at the door just as the pot was set down. Ji hurriedly said, "I'll get it. I'll open the door." She rushed to the door, smoothing out her clean clothes and fixing her hair. With a dignified smile, she opened the door. But the moment she saw who was outside, her lady of the house facade instantly crumbled. Standing there were over a dozen high-ranking elders who held the real power in the Qin clan base. Ji had never been close to these people, but she recognized the Chun clan insignia anywhere. These elders all wore the Chun clan crest, and behind them were younger middle-aged men and youths, all wearing the same badge. Dozens of people stood at the gate, all members of the Qin family. She felt like she was about to faint. Fortunately, Lin Shi's voice snapped her back to reality. "Come in." Lin Shi walked to the gate. She felt as if she'd been granted a royal pardon and scrambled out of the way to let them in. Lin Shi glanced at the dozens of people outside, his gaze settling on Chun Heli at the front. He asked indifferently, "What's the matter?" Many looked toward Chun Tuan and Chun Jiansheng, who were surrounded in the middle. They had cornered the father and son. Chun Heli intended to deal with Chun Jiansheng in front of everyone, accusing him of failing to discipline his son and bringing harm to the family. But Chun Tuan, the boy everyone usually looked down upon, insisted he wasn't joking. He hadn't played around, hadn't offended Lin Shi, and certainly hadn't caused any harm to the family. In truth, the clan elders knew Chun Heli was just looking for an excuse to vent his anger, and Chun Jiansheng was the easiest target. If Chun Jiansheng had just submissively accepted the blame as usual, Chun Heli would have punished him and let the matter drop. But Chun Tuan's defiance made it impossible for Chun Heli to settle things on the spot. As the elder of the Chun family's law enforcement hall, convicting a clansman required evidence. Either Chun Jiansheng and Chun Tuan had to confess, or they had to confirm the story with Lin Shi. Chun Tuan insisted he wasn't lying, leaving Chun Heli with no way to back down. He was forced to come to Lin Shi for confirmation, fuming with rage. By now, Chun Heli had secretly decided that this wouldn't end simply. He would take advantage of the clan head and Chun Lu's absence to directly convict Chun Jianqing and expel this entire branch from the Chun main line. Chun Heli suppressed his anger, trying to keep his voice calm. Pardon the intrusion. I wish to ask you something. My junior claims you invited him for dinner. Is that true? Lin Shi saw Chun Heli's long, grim face and thought he was here to complain about this afternoon. He didn't expect this question. He looked at Chin Tuan. The boy, who had looked so rebellious this afternoon, now looked wronged but resilient. His small eyes were red as he gripped his shirt to keep from crying, looking as if he had suffered a great injustice. Lin Shi realized what was happening. He nodded slightly, much to the shock of the Chin family. That's right. The kid was on the road all day, so I invited him for a meal. Why? Does a member of the Chin family need to bring a whole crowd just to have dinner? Lin Shi remembered Chun Tuan saying he wanted to eat yesterday. When they parted, he had casually asked if the boy wanted to come over. Since he was going to eat anyway, and the meat was provided by the Chun base, one more person made no difference to him. It was true. Chun Xian wasn't exaggerating. What kind of insane luck did this fat kid have? The juniors who had been mocking Chun Xian earlier stared at each other, their eyes wide with shock. In front of their elders, they didn't dare speak, only exchanging stunned glances. The most furious among them was the red-haired youth who had led the mockery. He glared at Chun Xian with pure resentment and spite. Humph, it's just a meal. Hearing Lin Shi confirm the invitation, the 20-year-old Chun Xian couldn't hold it back anymore. Tears welled up in his eyes, stinging with every breath. He wanted to scream at everyone who had questioned him. I told you, I wasn't lying. Did you hear that? Did you all hear that? But Chun Xian remained silent. If he lashed out now, he would offend nearly the entire Chin family. It would make it impossible for the elders, especially Chun Heli, to save face. So, Chun Xian just lowered his head, letting his tears fall silently. The freezing wind turned his tears and snot into ice on his face. The Chun family elders, especially Chun Heli, were caught in an awkward position. A flash of deep embarrassment crossed Chun Heli's face before he quickly forced himself to look calm again. They truly hadn't expected Lin Shi to actually keep Chun Xian for dinner. So that's how it is. I thought this rebellious brat was using your name to play a prank. Chun Heli swallowed his anger, though a different feeling took its place. Humiliation. All of Chun Heli's rage today was directed at Lin Shi, yet he didn't dare show even a hint of dissatisfaction. This afternoon, showing even a sliver of killing intent in front of Lin Shi would have been a death sentence. Chun Heli had no choice but to swallow his pride and force a smile. Then we won't disturb the senior and the boy's meal any longer. Farewell. Chun Heli led his people away. Xiao Xian, be a good boy and eat with the senior. Chun Xiefeng patted Chun Xian's shoulder with a kind, fatherly expression before leaving. The noisy crowd finally dispersed. If it weren't for the fact that Area B was secluded, the sight of the Chun family mobilizing such a large force would have terrified anyone watching. Only Chun Xian and his father, Chun Jianqing, remained. Just moments ago, they had been practically dragged here by the mob. Now, the elders didn't even bother taking them back. Clearly, the matter was settled. Chun Jianqing let out a long sigh of relief, his posture finally straightening. Thank you, senior, for allowing my son to stay for dinner. Chun Jianqing looked at Lin Shi with eyes full of gratitude, then turned to his sobbing son, a wave of bitterness washing over him. For the first time in over a decade, father and son felt they could truly hold their heads high in front of the Chin family. After this, Chun Heli wouldn't be looking for trouble with him anytime soon. Xiao Xian, go on. Stay here with senior. Watch your words and mind your manners at the table. You hear? Chun Jianqing almost blurted out, don't eat too much. Chun Xian wiped his face and nodded vigorously. I understand. Not wanting to delay Lin Shi's meal any further, Chun Jianqing bid his farewells. Lin Shi stepped aside from the door to let Chun Xian inside. The moment he entered, Chun Xian forgot all his previous sorrow. The house was filled with the mouth-watering aroma of boiled meat. He had smelled it outside, but inside, the scent was intoxicating. Chun Xian took a deep breath, his eyes glued to the pot of meat on the table. As a child of a branch line, Chun Xian had lived in the lower kingdom for a short time. Naturally, He had eaten boiled meat before. The main Chen line members who grew up in South America had no idea how delicious it was, but Chen Xian knew. Lower Kingdom cuisine was refined and incredibly diverse. Everyone, sit down and eat. I'll get the rice. Lin Shi went into the kitchen to scoop a bowl. Chen Xian gave a quick nod and followed to help. Ji stood by the table, hesitating, not quite daring to sit down. Hearing that the Chen family outside had stopped their harassment, she breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, seeing those Chen family members, who were legendary figures in her eyes, acting so submissively before Lin Shi left her stunned. Initially, she thought Lin Shi was just a high-level powerhouse recently recruited to the base, or perhaps a blood relative of the Chens. She never imagined Lin Shi's status would be this high. She had planned to behave after his warning, but now new thoughts began to stir. Sir, let me help you serve the food, Ji said eagerly. Chen Xian had already brought the rice to the table and was about to eat when he heard her, immediately remembering his father's warning. He put down his chopsticks. Lin Shi shot Ji a freezing glare. If you want to eat, do it quietly. If not, get back to your room. Don't be a nuisance here, and don't try anything in front of me. I know how to kill. Lin Shi felt like he couldn't even wait for Lin Siyuan to wake up. He wanted to kick this woman out right now. Ji recognized that deathly gaze and instantly remembered Lin Shi's previous lovers who had died by his hand. Back then, Lin Shi had used that exact same look before snapping someone's neck. Terrified, Ji stammered that she wouldn't dare. She cast a reluctant glance at the meat on the table and hurried away. With a guest from the Chun main line sitting there, how could she possibly dare to join them? And so, Lin Shi ate his meal in peace. Seeing Lin Shi eating with such gusto, Chen Xian initially held back, not daring to eat too much. But once Lin Shi asked him if it tasted good, Chen Xian threw his father's advice to the wind. He ate heartily. It was truly delicious. The two of them polished off an entire pot of rice along with nearly 10 pounds of meat. Senior, let me clear the table. Chen Xian still felt unsatisfied. He felt that eating with a master like Lin Shi was likely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Besides, the boiled meat was incredible. The flavor was spot on. He certainly couldn't let Lin Shi do the cleaning. Lin Shi felt quite relaxed as well. He had only invited Chen Xian on a whim, but after this meal, he realized that having Chen Xian over every day might not be a bad idea. First, with Chen Xian around, he didn't have to eat with Ji, that unpleasant woman. Second, Chen Xian's hearty appetite was contagious. Watching him eat made everything taste even better. Lin Shi, that kid, was definitely a pro at spreading food culture. As Chen Xian cleared the table, Lin Shi stood in the courtyard, gazing at the sky. It was pitch black, without a single star in sight. Ever since the solar storm triggered the apocalypse, the sky felt lower, and even the moon had vanished. Senior, are you from the Xia Kingdom? Chen Xian couldn't help but ask, though he immediately felt it was a stupid question. How could someone like him ever know Lin Shi's true origins? Lin Shi didn't answer. Instead, he said, go on home. Come back for lunch tomorrow. Yes, sir. Wait, what? Chen Xian thought he was being kicked out, but halfway through the sentence, he realized he hadn't misheard. Lin Shi didn't repeat himself. He just went inside and closed the door. Senior told me to come back for lunch, right? Did I hear that right? Or am I dreaming? Chen Xian stood before the dark gate, muttering in disbelief. The next morning, it was Lin Shi's third day at the Chen clan base. Chen Xian mentioned that Chen Lu should be back today, hopefully bringing news on whether the family needed Lin Shi's help. Helping under the guise of searching for mutated plants or hunting high-level beasts in the Amazon was the best-case scenario for Lin Shi. If that didn't work, he'd just have to let his fists do the talking. Standing in the courtyard, his punches were sharp and swift. Even if the Chun family didn't need him, he was definitely going to the Amazon. Yesterday, Chen Xian wasn't sure if Lin Shi was serious about the free meal, but he showed up early anyway. After last night's dinner, Chen Xian had been raving about that boiled meat. He praised it to the heavens, and seeing Chen Shui's admiring gaze only made him prouder. However, Lin Shi didn't go out this morning. He had already scouted the base yesterday and felt no need to do it again. He spent the morning practicing the vitality art in the living room. It absorbed primal energy much slower than using the treasure basin to drain it from beast corpses. But the vitality art helped limber up his joints and increased his physical endurance and strength. so regular practice was still beneficial. Chun Xian waited in the freezing wind all morning, nearly turning into a giant popsicle. At noon, Lin Shi opened the door and called him in. Lunch was simpler, just hot pot. Lin Shi told Chun Xian to find a microwave in the base before they ate. Chips still didn't come out because Chun Xian was there. Seeing fresh vegetables and fruits in the dead of winter, Chun Xian almost thought he was dreaming. He could ignore a small handful of herbs last night, but a whole pot of hot food today? Stop staring. Are you eating or not? If not, get lost. Lin Shi picked up a bunch of greens from the pot. They were covered in chili sauce. He dipped them in more sauce and shoved them into his mouth. As the spiciness of the chili blended with the fresh taste of the hot greens, a wave of warmth spread from his throat to his stomach. Man, winter hot pot really is the best. Lin Shi squinted in satisfaction and went back to the meat. Seeing this, Chun Xian stopped being curious and joined in. Is Chun Lu coming back today? Lin Shi asked while eating. Yes, that's what Lord Lu said. Chun Xian replied after swallowing a piece of meat. If you want to keep coming here for food, don't go blabbing about what you eat here, Lin Shi warned. Chun Xian nodded vigorously. Did he have a death wish? He wouldn't dare talk. Yesterday, he only told people how good the meat tasted. He didn't mention the herbs or the pepper. Besides, other than his father, who else treated him this well? Why would he share the secret? After a filling meal, Lin Shi sent Chun Xian away and went to check on Lin Siyuan. It had been 2 days and 1 night, and Lin Siyuan still hadn't woken up. Lin Shi tried feeding him some mutated ginseng fibers, but only a little, fearing the intense energy might cause a bad reaction. By that afternoon, there was still no word of Chun Lu's return. Chun Xian stayed to help Lin Shi by stationing guards at the entrance. Truthfully, Lin Shi wasn't in a rush. The ones who were truly worried were the other elders of the Qin family. According to the schedule, there was enough time to go to the Amazon, find the people, and return. If they exceeded the deadline, something unexpected must have happened. Soon, their fears became reality. By the 2nd and 3rd day, Chun Lu still hadn't appeared outside the base. This time, it wasn't just the Qin family who were uneasy. Another group of people was also getting restless. In an apartment in Sector C, the heart of the residential area, where the infrastructure and living conditions were far worse than Sector B, there were only a few spacious rooms with electricity and water. The scale was similar to the post-80s era buildings in the Xia Kingdom. Right now, 10 burly men were squeezed into a small room, waiting for the man by the window to speak. Kasuwa used his mental power to seal the entire room, preventing anyone from spying on them. Speak. What do you want me to do? Kasuwa asked, his back still turned to the group. Boss, let's just revolt. All those level 5 and level 6 old fogies aren't in the base right now. With you leading us, we can kill those old geezers and take over this base ourselves, one of the 10 men shouted. His words weren't just his own, they were the consensus of the group. But after all, when we were in danger, the base did help us. If we kill the Qin family now, I'm afraid it'll be hard to convince the public. Kasuwa turned around, revealing an elegant and fair face. In the room, everyone except Kasuwa was hulking and muscular. Kasuwa looked quite small among these giants. His appearance could easily attract people with specific tastes. But here, no one looked at Kasuwa with anything but respect. In fact, no one even dared to look him in the eye. Boss, you're wrong. The Qin family is just using us. You call that help? We've done so much for them. We're supposed to be partners, yet they treat us like slaves. Look at Oga. He was executed just for laying a hand on a civilian. Who among us hasn't killed a few civilians? If the Chun family decides to settle the score with us one day, will we be executed too? Today it's Oga, but tomorrow it could be me or anyone else. I don't want to see any more of our brothers die. We can't just let what happened to Oga and his brother slide. That's right, boss. The group of burly men shouted in unison. These were the arguments they had carefully prepared on the way here. Their boss was a good man, just overly cautious. They continued to press him. Gusu raised his hand and nudged the side of his eye, pushing at thin air. It was an unconscious habit of his whenever he was deep in thought. He used to be nearsighted, and it was only after unlocking his gene lock that his vision cleared. But he couldn't break the habit of adjusting his glasses. He did it instinctively, especially when he was thinking. Chun Lu has been out for 3 days and nights now, hasn't he? Yes. Still no word from him. Before that, Chen Shikong hadn't returned for 2 months. We thought they were hunting beasts in the Amazon, but something must have happened. They're probably dead. Otherwise, why would they let a level 6 powerhouse from the outside stay in the base without coming back? Aren't they worried about the base's security? In that case, let's go feel out that level 6 powerhouse first. Bring him some gifts. Fine, I'll go myself. Gusu nudged the air again. Chenlu had left the base 3 days and nights ago and still hadn't returned. Lin Siyuan finally woke up after being unconscious for 3 days and nights. How are you feeling? Lin Shi stood by the bed, observing the boy's condition. As Lin Siyuan woke, the primal energy around him fluctuated violently. Lin Shi sensed it immediately from the second floor. After giving Hua Hua a quick scolding, he recalled her into his space. Lin Siyuan sat up dazed, looking at his hands before turning to Lin Shi. I feel different. Uncle, what happened to me? Lin Shi asked. How do you feel right now? I feel healthier than ever. My body is full of strength, Lin Siyuan said, throwing a small punch. His face, once withered and sallow from long-term starvation, had regained the rosy, smooth complexion of a healthy child. His large eyes sparkled. Lin Shi pulled a primal energy dagger from his space, rolled up his sleeve, and lightly cut his arm. Fresh blood immediately welled up. Lin Siyuan gasped. See if you can heal this, Lin Shi said, extending his arm. This dagger was loot from the Wang family. It wasn't high grade, so even with some force, it only broke the skin without damaging the muscle. If he didn't act fast, it would heal on its own. Without needing another word, Lin Siyuan immediately placed his small hand on Lin Shi's arm. With a look of intense focus, he began to channel his healing power. A faint white light appeared. Lin Shi felt a slight warmth at the wound, a pleasant sensation spreading through him as the cut quickly closed. Soon, only a faint red mark remained before it, too, vanished. While Lin Shi's own powerful self-healing played a part, Lin Siyuan's healing ability deserved more than half the credit. After using his power, Lin Siyuan's small face turned slightly pale. How do you feel? Can you do it again? Lin Shi asked. Lin Siyuan sensed the remaining primal energy in his body. If it's a wound like that, I can heal you about 3 or 4 more times. Lin Shi nodded slightly. That was just a minor scratch. This meant that even if the wound were more serious, Lin Siyuan could still heal him. It might not sound like much, but a rank 3 healing a rank 7 awakened was incredible. If he could nurture Lin Siyuan to rank 6 and further enhance this ability, treating severe or even fatal injuries wouldn't be out of the question. Not bad. Very good. Growl. A strange sound erupted from Lin Siyuan's stomach. He clutched his belly, his face turning bright red. Uncle, did I sleep for a long time? You slept for 3 days. No wonder I'm so hungry. Lin Siyuan gave an embarrassed smile. Lin Shi immediately pulled some food from his space. Eat first. We'll talk once you're finished. After Lin Siyuan ate, Lin Shi told him about Chip's existence. He detailed everything, where he met Chip, how Chip entered the Chun family base, and the death of the boy named Hino. Surprisingly, Lin Siyuan didn't react much to Chip's existence, but he was deeply shaken by the news of Hino's death. Hino is dead. Lin Siyuan's once bright eyes went dull. He lowered his head, and after a long silence, he finally spoke. Actually, I was adopted. In the beginning, my foster parents were very good to me. Hino came along after I was adopted. He was a year younger than me. Every time my foster father bought gifts, he bought too. Whatever Hino had, I had too. He always said we were both his sons. My foster mother made me do more chores and sometimes gave Hino better food, but I was the older brother. I had to look out for him. As I grew up, I learned I wasn't their biological child, but I still cherished every day with that family. I saw them as my real parents. But 4 years ago, Hino collapsed at school. After my foster parents brought him home from the hospital, their attitude toward me changed. My foster mother became even kinder to me, which was strange, but my foster father grew distant. I felt like he was always avoiding me. Hino got weaker and weaker, often struggling to breathe. He couldn't play ball with me anymore. Then, 3 years ago, I overheard my foster parents arguing in their room. I wanted to tell them to stop fighting, but when I reached the door, I realized they were arguing about me. Hino had a heart condition and needed a transplant to survive. Otherwise, he only had a few years left. My foster mother wanted to take my heart for Hino, but my foster father said I was his son too. He couldn't sacrifice one child for the other. I was so scared back then. I knew I'd die without a heart. I heard it everywhere. He told me to run away, to hide. So I ran. As Lin Siyuan spoke, tears the size of beans fell onto the quilt, soaking a large patch of it. Lin Shi sat quietly beside him. Not long after Lin Siyuan ran away, he was spotted by human traffickers. He was less than 8 years old then, defenseless and easily captured. They planned to sell him to a distant country. Unexpectedly, a sudden solar eclipse occurred, paralyzing all transportation. Soon after, everyone fell unconscious. Lin Siyuan woke up early and immediately bolted. At that moment, he regretted running away. If he left, Gino would die. His feelings for Gino were real. Besides his foster father, Gino was the person he loved most. But the sudden drop in temperature and global chaos meant he couldn't find anyone to help him get home. Shivering and starving, he wandered the streets until a pack of stray dogs huddled around him to keep him warm. That was how he was discovered. A kind elderly couple took him in, gave him food and warm clothes, and let him stay temporarily. They planned to take him home once the disaster ended. But the disaster didn't end. The temperature plummeted, and the elderly couple soon fell ill. Lin Siyuan was desperate, risking his life to find a doctor or medicine, but he only found a pharmacy swarming with people. A mere child like Lin Siyuan was no match for the vicious adults fighting over supplies. In the end, he only managed to grab a dropped box of anti-inflammatories and hide it in his shirt, but he was spotted. Cornered by a brute, Lin Siyuan didn't think about surrendering the medicine to save himself. He only thought that without it, the kind couple would surely die. Driven by sheer will, he unlocked his genetic lock. The first thing he did was use a roadside brick to knock the brute unconscious and flee. But before he could get far, the backlash of the genetic unlock hit him. Ultimately, he couldn't keep the medicine, and the elderly couple passed away. Trapped in their house by the blizzard, it wasn't long before primordial beasts began appearing in the city. Fortunately, the beasts didn't attack him. Unfortunately, survivors began looting for supplies. Lin Siyuan went into hiding, eventually ending up in a survivor base where he met Lin Shi. For the past 3 days, she hadn't gone upstairs at all, so she had no idea Lin Siyuan was up there. She was diligently cleaning the first floor, trying to prove her worth so Lin Shi would notice her. Over the last few days, she realized Lin Shi had no romantic interest in her. Thus, she assumed he simply needed a woman to handle the daily chores. After all, it wouldn't be right for a powerful man, an elite, to waste time sweeping, doing laundry, or cooking. As she was focused on wiping a table, she heard footsteps on the stairs. She prepared a smile. It was a smile she had practiced over 100 times in the mirror just to greet Lin Shi. But then she saw Lin Siyuan standing behind him. At the sight of that familiar face, her smile froze. Siyuan? Why are you here? She was stunned. Seeing Lin Siyuan was as shocking as when Xiong Qinhuli led his men here. She thought her foster son had died, yet here he was, standing before her. Not just alive, but looking well-fed and healthy. Hearing Qi's voice, Lin Siyuan's lips trembled. He paused on the stairs for a moment before continuing down. He walked over to her and gave a small nod. His tone wasn't overly affectionate, but it was respectful. After the initial shock, Qi dropped to her knees and pulled Lin Siyuan into a tight embrace. My son, you're alive. I thought something terrible had happened to you. Lin Siyuan didn't have a strong reaction. He had already processed his feelings about her upstairs. He just let her hold him. Overwhelmed with emotion, Qi looked him up and down through teary eyes. This is wonderful. You're safe. How did you survive? Lin Siyuan looked down. It was Uncle. He saved me and took me in. A look of realization flashed in Qi's eyes, and her smile grew even brighter. She wasn't stupid. She finally understood why Lin Shi hadn't killed her and had brought her here instead. It was because of Lin Siyuan. However, she couldn't fathom what Lin Shi saw in the boy. She thought of her own deceased biological son and looked Lin Siyuan up and down again with an unreadable expression. That's great. This gentleman saved me too. From now on, we'll serve him together, okay? Lin Siyuan lowered his head, a hint of regret on his face. But, Uncle said that now that I've found you, he won't be keeping me anymore. What? She snapped her head up to look at Lin Shi, who was sitting on the sofa, watching the reunion. Lin Shi gave a slight nod, confirming the boy's words. That's right. I only took him in because I thought he was an orphan. Now that he's found his mother, he should live with her. No. She shrieked, her face pale with shock. This was nothing like she had imagined. Weren't they supposed to stay with Lin Siyuan and be taken in together? Why not? Lin Shi asked. Lin Siyuan looked up at Chi, his eyes calm. Uncle has no obligation to us. We can't keep bothering him. He was kind enough to take me in for a while, because he was afraid I wouldn't survive the apocalypse on my own. Now that I've found you, I'll live with you from now on. No, no. She shook her head repeatedly. If she left Lin Shi, she'd be forced back to the refugee zone. She didn't want to live that dark, sunless life anymore. She couldn't take it. My lord, are you really casting us out? I can stay and take care of your daily meals, and Siyuan can help with the chores. She still held on to a sliver of hope, looking at Lin Shi with eyes full of anxiety and pleading. Lin Shi shook his head. I have too much to do. I can't keep dragging the two of you along. Move out today. Siyuan has nothing here. I'll let you take some daily necessities later as compensation for our time together. Lin Shi pointed at the pile of supplies provided by the Chun base in the living room. After speaking, he went upstairs, ignoring the mother and son. Chi slumped onto the cold floor. She never expected the good life she had just started to end so soon, and because of this adopted son. The look Chi gave Lin Siyuan no longer held any fake affection. Instead, it was filled with resentment. Her lips trembled, but in the end, she didn't say anything harsh. She said nothing and stood up to pack. Since he said they could take some things, she would take as much as possible. Lin Siyuan noticed the change in Chi, but he only pursed his lips and helped her pack. Even after packing, Chi wasn't willing to just leave. She meticulously asked Lin Siyuan about how he met Lin Shi. When Lin Shi came down for lunch, Chi pulled Lin Siyuan down to kneel before him, repeatedly begging Lin Shi to keep them. She wanted to exploit Lin Shi's initial pity for Lin Siyuan to stay, but Lin Shi was firm and wouldn't budge. That afternoon, because she refused to leave, Lin Shi lost his patience and threw them out. Bang! The door of the small villa slammed shut. At that same moment, Chi's hope was extinguished. She looked at the new home she had only enjoyed for 3 days, her eyes full of longing. If she had never known this life and stayed in the slums, perhaps reality wouldn't be so hard to accept. But now, having to return to a life worse than a sewer rat's, tormented by all kinds of men. Torture, it was worse than death. She didn't understand. This morning she was still dreaming of a bright future. How did it turn out like this by the afternoon? What happened? Even if she had to be a slave here, she would have been content. Let's go. Lin Siyuan pulled at the corner of Chi's clothes from behind. Chi responded with a fierce glare that made Lin Siyuan's hand freeze in midair from fear. No one knew how much Chi hated Lin Siyuan at this moment. If Lin Siyuan hadn't appeared, she could still be sleeping in a soft bed, doing light chores, eating hot food every day, and bathing in clean, warm water. It all vanished the moment Lin Siyuan showed up. But she didn't realize that without Lin Siyuan, she wouldn't have even had those 3 days of luxury. She might have died the day Lin Shi passed through the slums. She finally left Sector B. Except for the slums, every part of the inner city was guarded. She didn't dare stop in Sector C and could only return to Sector D. But when she led Lin Siyuan back to her old place, she found the room had already been taken by someone else. This is clearly my room. What right do you have to be here? She screamed at the man standing at the door. The man's name was Jia Ku, a resident of this sector. Don't you know? Here, any room not belonging to a citizen is considered ownerless. Mata is dead, and since the room was empty, I moved in. Weren't you being pampered by some big shot? Why come back here? It was true. She was still an illegal immigrant. She had followed a neighbor into this sector and had no official residence. That neighbor, after learning someone else would be moving in, kicked Chi out a few days later. She had to find another place on her own. In reality, rooms like the empty ones in Sector D were unregistered and ownerless. Anyone could live in them. Furthermore, this sector had no base management. Many people brought in by citizens just found empty rooms to squat in. She had arrived quite late, and Sector D was already full. Newcomers could only fight for ownerless rooms. A weak woman with a small child naturally couldn't win a fight for a place. And without a home, Wandering the streets meant there was no guarantee of safety. That night, Chi was raped, and Gino was also kicked until he fainted. This situation lasted for more than just one day. Fortunately, the apocalypse arrived, allowing them to nourish their bodies. Otherwise, Gino might have died on the very first day due to his weak health. A few days later, Chi caught the attention of a man from Xiagua named Su Guzhen, who took her to his room and said he would take her in. Su Guzhen made it a condition that Ji was not allowed to keep Gino with her. Ji agonized between her own life and her son's for nearly half a day, but ultimately chose her own survival. It was also because of this, under Su Guzhen's instigation, that Gino was tricked and sold into District C. He was put into a brothel. Although Gino was still young, according to Ji's assessment, he possessed exceptionally beautiful eyes. Thus, Gino was confined in the brothel and eventually met a tragic death. Not long after bringing the money from selling Gino back to District D, the man named Su Guzhen kicked Ji out. When her money ran out, in her desperation, Ji was taken in by a man in black, the one who later died at the hands of Lin Shi. Even though she had to serve the man in black, she still found it much better than her time wandering outside. She was only taken away by Lin Shi after the man in black passed away. As soon as the man in black died, his residence was immediately occupied by someone else. She understood that this was the unwritten law of District D, but she was terrified of returning to the living hell existence she endured when she first arrived at the base. At that moment, several men poked their heads out of their houses, looking at Ji with greedy, lustful eyes. Feeling as if she were being stripped naked by those stares, she looked at Jia Ku and pleaded, "Jia Ku, I beg you, please give this room back to me. We have also known each other for nearly 2 years. If you don't mind, I will sleep with you for a night." Jia Ku glanced at Ji with contempt, but when he saw the backpack she was wearing, a flash of greed appeared in his eyes. Then he looked toward Lin Siyuan, who was standing behind Ji. "Is that kid behind you from the Xia Kingdom?" Ji desperately wanted to say yes. If Lin Siyuan was a citizen of the Xia Kingdom, she could rightfully secure a place in the zone and be much safer. But she truly didn't know if Lin Siyuan was actually from the Xia Kingdom or not. The boy had grown up with them and didn't know a word of Chinese. Relying on a name alone wouldn't get him through the base's registration process. "I don't know. He's my adopted son. I've raised him since he was a baby," Ji answered honestly. Jia Ku's eyes lit up as he scanned Lin Siyuan from head to toe. His filthy, predatory gaze was no longer hidden. Ji was all too familiar with that look. Countless men had looked at her that way before. Sure enough, Jia Ku spoke. "Let your adopted son sleep with me, and I'll let both of you stay here." Ji wanted to refuse, but then she remembered the reason she had come back. Her hesitation lasted only a moment before it hardened into cold determination and resentment. She couldn't sell Lin Siyuan to Zone C like Jinuo. At least, not as long as that man was still at the base. She didn't dare risk it. In that case, if Lin Siyuan had to sacrifice himself so his mother could survive, then so be it. After all, she had raised him for 7 years. Ji turned her head to look at Lin Siyuan. The boy had remained silent ever since they left Zone B. Because he had been under Lin Shi's care, Lin Siyuan was fair-skinned and soft. His large, clear eyes still held a touch of innocence. He wore clean clothes, and his hair was neatly kept. In this post-apocalyptic world, the boy looked like a beautiful little angel. Seeing Lin Siyuan's purity, Ji felt a twisted, inexplicable urge to destroy that very innocence. She forced a smile. "Siyuan, from now on, we're going to stay with this uncle, okay? He's a very good man, and he's very fond of children." The light in Lin Siyuan's eyes slowly died out. He said nothing as Ji continued to coax him with hollow, childish words. Seeing Lin Siyuan's indifference, Jia Ku lost his patience. "Well, is it a yes or no? Give me a straight answer or get lost. Don't block my door." Ji grew frantic. It was almost dark, with less than an hour left. If she didn't find shelter soon, this place would become her living hell. Regardless of what Lin Siyuan thought, Ji answered for him. "I agree. Let us in." Hearing her consent, Jia Ku flashed a disgusting, lewd smile and stepped aside. As Ji happily prepared to step inside, Lin Siyuan spoke up from behind her. "I don't want to." Ji froze in her tracks. Jia Ku's face darkened instantly, and he shoved Ji back out just as she was halfway through the door. "Get the hell out." You're not welcome here. In truth, Jiaku was still worried about Lin Siyuan's background. He was of Asian descent, after all. If something went wrong and an investigation followed, he wouldn't be able to escape the consequences. It was only because Lin Siyuan looked so clean and handsome that he had let his impulses take over. Jiaku slammed the door shut with a heavy bang, locking them out. Resentment flared in Ji's eyes. She turned around and delivered a sharp, stinging slap to Lin Siyuan's face. The sound of the slap echoed loudly through the narrow, quiet alley. The blow was so hard it left Lin Siyuan dizzy. He turned back to look at the furious Ji, whose eyes were filled with pure hatred. Ji grew even more enraged and slapped him several more times. With his current strength as a level 3 awakened, Lin Siyuan could have easily dodged her, but he didn't. He stood there and let her strike him. His fair, handsome face quickly began to swell. I raised you for this. Why are you being so difficult? Do you have any idea how much I've suffered all these years? It's all your fault. You little jinx. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been kicked out. If I'd known I could find someone to save Jinyuo, I would have traded your heart for his long ago. Ji finally lost all control, venting every ounce of her bitterness onto Lin Siyuan. The light in Lin Siyuan's eyes vanished completely. He whispered, "Wasn't it because you signed a contract when you adopted me, promising to raise me until I was an adult?" Ji's hand stopped midair. Her face twisted into a crazed, manic expression. So you knew? You knew everything, and yet you still followed me? Do you hate me? Well, let me tell you, you're going to regret it even more. Tonight, the people here won't let me off easy. And they won't let you off either. Just wait and see how they torment you. Despite the beating and the insults, Lin Siyuan didn't cry or get angry. He only stared at Ji with a cold, hollow gaze. That look infuriated her even more. She raised her hand to strike him again. I am a level 3 awakened, Lin Siyuan said. Ji's hand froze in midair, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. You're a level 3 awakened? Ji awkwardly lowered her hand. Why didn't you say so sooner? Lin Siyuan continued to look at her with a calm, detached gaze. If a mother truly cared for her child after a reunion, she would have asked how he had been and what he had endured over the years. But she hadn't asked. Not only did she not care, but within a single day of reuniting, she had tried to sell him to a disgusting old man. Ji avoided his eyes and forced a smile to hide her embarrassment. I was just terrified we wouldn't have a place to stay tonight. I just hadn't gotten around to asking yet. She had spent the whole day at Lin Shi's place begging to no avail, and had struggled so hard to reach Zone D for shelter. If she had known Lin Siyuan was a level 3 awakened, she wouldn't have needed to grovel like a dog. Thinking of this, Ji felt even more resentful toward Lin Siyuan, but she didn't dare show it. Without Lin Shi, Lin Siyuan was now her only means of survival in this apocalypse. Her plan to wait for Lin Shi to leave the base so she could sell Lin Siyuan to a brothel was immediately discarded. I'm so sorry. I just lost my temper for a moment. Does it hurt? Seeing that Lin Siyuan didn't respond, Ji backed down and reached out to gently stroke his face. Lin Siyuan calmly stepped back, avoiding her touch. A flash of anger crossed Ji's face, but she suppressed it. Siyuan, where are we staying tonight? Outside the city or here? Lin Siyuan glanced at the darkening sky. It's late. Let's just stay here. Lin Siyuan walked past Ji to the door of Jiaku, the man who had just rejected them. He raised his leg and delivered a thunderous kick. The door wasn't securely locked, and Lin Siyuan sent it flying off its hinges. The door burst open, revealing a startled Jiaku standing inside. Recognizing Lin Siyuan, Jiaku's face turned savage as he lunged forward. You little brat. I wasn't going to hunt you down, but you've come looking for death, haven't you? Lin Siyuan raised his hand to block Jiaku's arm, and then kicked him hard in the groin. A sickening crunch echoed through the air as he was struck in his most vulnerable spot. Jiaku clutched his stomach, his eyes flickering with a bloodshot rage. His face was twisted in absolute agony. As a level 2 evolver, he stood no chance of resisting Lin Siyuan. Lin Siyuan hoisted Jiaku up with a strength that defied his small frame and tossed him out the door. His movements were so fluid and efficient that they bore a faint resemblance to Lin Shi's own style. The conversation between Lin Siyuan and Qi didn't reach the ears of those nearby. But once they heard Lin Siyuan was a level 3 evolver, the hostile glares instantly vanished. After witnessing Jiake's fate, the others regretfully closed their doors and minded their own business. Most people here were level 2 evolvers, a level 3. Even if he looked gentle, he wasn't someone they dared to provoke. But just because they wouldn't touch him didn't mean no one would. Lin Siyuan entered the room and spoke to the still stunned Qi. "Come in." Qi finally snapped out of it. She glanced at Jiake lying on the ground before hurrying inside and closing the door. For now, they had a place to stay. The room was filthy, covered in mysterious stains. There was a rusted iron bed in the corner with a mattress so grimy its original color was long gone. Against the wall stood a stone table covered in a sheet of plastic. It was just enough for one person to sleep on. But sleeping there in the dead of winter, the stone would be bone-chillingly cold, not something just anyone could endure. With no windows, the room plunged into pitch darkness once the door closed. A foul, trapped stench filled the air. Lin Siyuan sat casually on the plastic-covered stone table. "Mom, you take the bed." She was still terrified by Lin Siyuan's methods. Hearing him offer the bed, she hesitated for a moment before lying down. She clutched the belongings she brought from Lin Shi's place tightly. In the darkness, she couldn't see the mocking sneer on Lin Siyuan's face. His eyes were darker than the shadows, no longer hiding his true nature behind a mask of innocence. Lin Shi sat in the living room with Hua curled in his lap. Nearby, the Demon King lay flat, having not moved for a long time. As expected, no child who survives the apocalypse is simple. Lin Shi stroked Hua and spoke softly. "Master, will that child come back?" The Demon King stretched his claws, scratching the floor. "He will. He did everything he could to stay by my side. Why wouldn't he return?" Lin Shi gave a self-deprecating smile. Even he had almost been fooled by Lin Siyuan. Kicking Qi out of the villa was Lin Shi's doing, but it was exactly what Lin Siyuan wanted. After hearing Lin Siyuan's story, Lin Shi had asked if he wanted to go with Qi. Lin Siyuan said no. But then he added that she was the one who raised him, and he couldn't just let her die. They both knew that if Qi were driven out alone, she wouldn't last long. So, Lin Siyuan made a deal with Lin Shi. While Lin Shi stayed at the base, Lin Siyuan would leave him to live with Qi. He wanted to see if this woman was truly worth treating as his mother. Lin Shi agreed, and played along with the act to kick Qi out of Sector B. The reason he agreed so quickly was that he found something interesting in Lin Siyuan. The boy always acted pure and kind, but he was hiding so much. From the start, Lin Shi felt that a boy who survived a cannibalistic base couldn't be simple. It was just that Lin Siyuan had used his special ability to dispel Lin Shi's suspicions. Furthermore, Lin Siyuan's acting was superb. He always appeared harmless in front of Lin Shi, playing the role of an innocent child to perfection. Lin Shi had gradually let his guard down. Of course, the most important thing was that Lin Siyuan showed no malice toward him. Otherwise, Lin Shi would have spotted the deception from the beginning. When did Lin Shi first notice something was off? It was a few days ago, when he visited Lin Siyuan's old home. At first, Lin Siyuan showed clear signs of anxiety and fear. Lin Shi initially thought the boy was worried about his parents' safety, until he noticed several strange details in that abandoned house. It turned out Lin Siyuan was adopted. He had never mentioned a fourth person living there. At the same time, Lin Shi found 3 bedrooms, a master bedroom for the couple. He easily identified a child's room, but from the leftover photos, he knew it wasn't Lin Siyuan's. Then there was a small, cluttered room like a storage closet with a tiny bed, most likely Lin Siyuan's room. Clearly, Lin Siyuan's family had gone through a lot. But why did he want to come back here? Why did he act so concerned for their safety? How did Lin Siyuan end up abroad and get discovered? How did such a small child leave his parents? These questions swirled in Lin Shi's mind. From that moment, he began to observe Lin Siyuan more closely. Lin Shi wasn't angry about being deceived. On the contrary, the fact that Lin Siyuan wasn't a harmless child but a skilled actor made him even more useful to Lin Shi. Perhaps Lin Siyuan didn't expect Lin Shi to find his old home so quickly. Perhaps from the moment Lin Siyuan suggested Lin Shi take him home, he had already planned to stay by Lin Shi's side. Both the display of his power and the exhaustion he felt while nearly reviving the wild wolf were intentional moves to show Lin Shi his true value. Therefore, his anxiety and fear after Lin Shi found the old house were directed at Lin Shi, not his missing parents. As soon as Lin Siyuan woke up and Lin Shi revealed Qi's existence, his first reaction was dread, not surprise. Lin Siyuan tried to hide this small slip-up and began telling his story. But the more he spoke, the easier it was to make mistakes. No matter how brilliant Lin Siyuan was, he was still only a 10-year-old child. After hearing the story, Lin Shi realized that while most of it was true, there were many parts that were not. For example, he didn't want to hear any information related to his adoptive mother and younger brother. Lin Shi initially worried that Lin Siyuan would follow his adoptive mother, but it turned out to be a needless concern. Lin Shi had to admit that he had underestimated Lin Siyuan. In the apocalypse, there's a reason why children don't survive, and there's also a reason why the ones who do survive. Master, do you still want to keep him around? The Demon King asked casually. Lin Shi smirked slightly, his eyes unreadable. Of course, even though he lied to me, compared to a naive little white rabbit, I prefer dealing with smart people. He has value staying by my side, but I'll be changing how I treat him. As for how he would treat him, Lin Shi didn't specify. Understanding Lin Shi's intention, the Demon King nodded, feeling a fleeting moment of pity for the boy, Lin Siyuan. Master really is a scheming, smart and sharp person. The day after Lin Siyuan and Gigi left, an uninvited guest arrived. Lin Shi opened the door, looking at the man holding a briefcase outside, and raised an eyebrow. What is it? Greetings, esteemed Mr. Lin. Cassette bowed slightly. I am Cassette. I wonder if I might have a word with you. Today, Cassette was wearing glasses and looked very neat. He brought quite a few things with him, appearing very humble and polite. Cassette. Lin Shi muttered the name in his mind while sweeping his powerful spiritual energy over him. Feeling the pressure, Cassette trembled slightly and bowed even deeper. Come in. Lin Shi stepped into the house, gesturing for Cassette to follow. Upon entering, Cassette acted very courteously. He set his things down before taking a seat. What do you want from me? Lin Shi asked bluntly. You must have heard my name from others. Please allow me to introduce myself. No need. I don't want to know. Just get straight to the point. Lin Shi cut him off. The polite smile on Cassette's face stiffened for a moment, but he quickly recovered. He pushed up his glasses and said, Then I'll be direct. I want to cooperate with you. Cassette deployed his spiritual energy, trying to cover the area to prevent eavesdropping. But the moment his spiritual energy spread out, it was immediately suppressed by Lin Shi's. Just speak openly here. Lin Shi's unwelcoming attitude almost made Cassette lose his composure, but he kept his smile and said, I was being presumptuous. But I hope you understand that we are not enemies, and I don't want you to see us as enemies either. I'll be frank. I hope that during your time at the base, you won't interfere in the matters between me and the Qin family. If possible, it would be best if you stood on our side. Whatever the Qin family can give you, we can too, and even more. Lin Shi chuckled. Are you planning to make a move against the Qin family? Cassette didn't panic at having his true intentions exposed. Keeping that fake smile on his face, he said, I won't hide it from you. We do indeed have this intention. But everything still requires your support. Aren't you afraid I'll tell the Qin family directly? Lin Shi raised an eyebrow. If you tell the Qin family directly, there's nothing I can do. If you side with them, our plans will have to change. But I know you won't, Cassette said with absolute confidence. What makes you so sure? Lin Shi didn't buy it. In your Xia country, there's a saying, there are no eternal friends, only eternal interests. The benefits you can get from cooperating with the Qin family, we can give you as well. Besides, you probably don't have any real ties to the Qin family, right? So siding with us is exactly the same. Previously, my subordinate had a slight misunderstanding with you. On behalf of my deceased subordinate, I apologize to you. If it's about that boy, I am deeply sorry. I am willing to compensate you within my means for the harm done to the mother and child. The boy Cassette mentioned was Gino. He had been keeping a close eye on Lin Shi's movements. How could he not know what had happened around Lin Shi recently? Cassette even knew the news that Lin Shi had moved to District D yesterday afternoon. No need for compensation. Those matters have nothing to do with me. Lin Shi said bluntly, You truly are a wise man. Cassette secretly breathed a sigh of relief, praising him cheerfully. The look in his eyes behind his glasses grew even more confident. He felt he had this in the bag. Cassette continued unhurriedly. You probably don't know this, But that old geezer Chin Heli doesn't like you. He even badmouths you behind your back. In recent Chin family meetings, he even suggested using you to deal with me. The reason you shouldn't make enemies with us is that I believe a powerhouse like you shouldn't be used. Personally, I like your straightforward approach. I'm a straightforward person myself. I believe you also prefer a direct approach, rather than scheming behind someone's back. Cassett felt he had figured out Lin Shi's temperament. Lin Shi chuckled. This guy was indeed very professional, but he didn't see any straightforwardness in him. And then, I admire you greatly. If you agree, after I wipe out the Chin family, I can make you the leader of the new base. My 23 level 4 subordinates and I are all willing to serve you. Cassett offered his utmost sincerity. Lin Shi burst out laughing. Cassett didn't know what Lin Shi was laughing at, assuming he was just overjoyed. Exactly. Who wouldn't covet ruling a base of hundreds of thousands of people? With a base, one could expand outward in the future and carve out their own territory. Cassett didn't think this man could refuse. But what Cassett didn't know was that he wasn't the first person to offer the leader position to Lin Shi. Before him, someone else had already wanted to yield the leader position to Lin Shi, and others had advised him to become a leader. Why did everyone think he liked that leader position so much? Lin Shi found it incredibly amusing. He had no interest in such a thankless, exhausting role. What was even more ridiculous was that this Cassett guy kept talking about giving him this and that, but in reality, all his promises were based on the prerequisite that they could conquer the Chun family base. To put it bluntly, he was trying to catch a wolf with bare hands. How powerful was Lin Shi's spiritual energy? Even though Cassett wore glasses, Lin Shi could see right through the lenses to the ambition hidden in his eyes. Moreover, Cassett had absolutely no intention of giving up the leader position to him. He wanted to become the base leader himself. He only said those things because he was afraid that if Lin Shi had the same goal, he wouldn't be able to beat him. So, he'd rather yield the position first and find a chance to snatch it back later. What a classic move of retreating to advance. An ambitious hound. What do you think? As long as you agree, I'll immediately order my men to take action. Cassett pushed up his glasses, smiling so widely his eyes narrowed into slits as he waited for Lin Shi's reply. Lin Shi dropped his smile, his expression turning thoughtful. No, I don't cooperate with people who like taking shortcuts. The frame of the glasses in Cassett's hand snapped. Cassett quickly bowed his head, pretending to adjust his glasses, but in reality, he was hiding the twisted expression in his eyes. In the end, Cassett couldn't fix his glasses. He stood up, maintaining a strained smile, and said, "Then never mind. I won't bother you any longer. Until next time." Lin Shi didn't stand up, just watching Cassett stumble out the door. The Demon King walked out of the kitchen, came up beside Lin Shi, and waved his hand. "Master, that pretty boy was trying to scheme against you, wasn't he?" A mocking glint flashed in Lin Shi's eyes. "Yeah, he probably thinks he's the only smart one, and everyone else is an idiot. If it were someone as ambitious as Cassett, they might have been persuaded by him. Too bad he ran into me. Do you need me to go kill him?" the Demon King asked. "No need. The Chin family also has a bunch of old fools who don't know their place. Let them bite each other." The Demon King tilted his head, pondering what dog biting dog meant. His master treated him like a human, yet called other humans dogs. And what did taking shortcuts mean? Why did the guy get so angry after his master said those words? The human world was truly complicated. The news of Cassett visiting Lin Shi quickly reached the Chin family. At this moment, at Chun Heli's residence, the elders and high-ranking members of the Chun family had gathered again. Everyone looked grave. Chen Lujiao was absent, so currently, Chin Heli was the one with the most authority. He spoke up, "What do you all think about Cassett seeking out Lin Shi? If Lin Shi teams up with that scumbag Cassett, we're in trouble," Chen Xiefeng said. The other Chin family elders hesitated to speak, their faces clearly showing anxiety and unease. It wasn't just trouble, it was an impending disaster. The Chin family had formidable power. The family head, Chun Tianxiong, was a level 6 powerhouse. Chen Lujia, a level 5 powerhouse, permanently resided here. Even in the apocalypse, they were an extremely powerful faction. But right now, both of these powerhouses were absent and hadn't returned. Among the remaining members, the strongest was only level 4. If they only had to deal with Cassett, it would be manageable. But if a level 6 powerhouse was added to the mix, How could they possibly fend them off? Could something have happened to Sixth Master and the family head? A middle-aged Qin family member said worriedly. Nonsense. Sixth Master and the family head will definitely return safely to the snowy mountains. Watch your mouth, an elder scolded. Qin Xiefeng glanced at the person who had just spoken. The man immediately realized he had misspoken and lowered his head. The others, though silent, were all equally worried. They worried that Chen Tianxiong and Chen Lujiao wouldn't return. They also worried that before those two came back, Lin Shi and Cassette would team up to wipe them out. In the tense atmosphere, Chan Jiansheng suddenly spoke up. How about we ask Senior Lin Shi for his thoughts? The current crisis mainly stemmed from the fear that Lin Shi and Cassette would join forces. If Lin Shi had no such intention, relying on the Chun family's 1,000-year heritage, dealing with Cassette wouldn't be too difficult. All the elders in the room looked toward Chen Jiansheng. Over the years, he had always kept a low profile. This was the first time he had voiced an opinion in this meeting. Chen Heli looked at Chen Jiansheng with displeasure. Ask him how. Ask Lin Shi directly if he's teaming up with Cassette. What right do we have to ask? Do you think a level 6 powerhouse would answer the question of a level 4 ant? Chen Jiansheng lowered his head. Years of endurance made him afraid to talk back. Chen Xiefeng smiled. I actually think it's a good idea. Chen Quan has been eating at Lin Shi's place a lot lately, hasn't he? There's no harm in asking. Just treat it as a chat between peers. Chen Heli sneered. Peers? How do you know Lin Shi isn't some old monster who's lived for ages? Chen Xiefeng shook his head. Impossible. No one could unlock the level 6 gene at the age of 20 before the origin power outbreak. Even though the origin power outbreak only happened 3 years ago, compared to unlocking the level 6 gene beforehand, I'm more inclined to believe he encountered a massive fortuitous encounter after the outbreak. That's just your guess. Chen Heli knew Chen Xiefeng made sense, but he refused to admit it. Who knows, he might be a 1,000-year-old monster. If he can hang out with Chen Quan and enjoy good food together, I'm certain he's not some old monster. This was the first time Chen Xiefeng had openly opposed Chen Heli, which surprised everyone quite a bit. With Sixth Master and the family head absent, Chen Xiefeng had always appeared submissive to Chen Heli. Whatever Chen Heli said, he listened. He even helped smooth things over when Chen Heli spoke too bluntly. This was the first time everyone witnessed Chen Xiefeng and Chen Heli disagreeing in public. Furthermore, Chen Xiefeng was actually defending Chen Jiansheng. Chen Heli was obviously furious. He stood up abruptly. Then do as you please. I want to see what kind of capability Chen Quan has. With that, he turned and went upstairs. The meeting ended on a sour note. Chen Jiansheng left Chen Heli's room and expressed his gratitude to Chen Xiefeng. Thank you for looking out for me, elder. I wasn't looking out for you. I just think highly of that boy, Chen Quan. Chen Xiefeng stroked his salt and pepper beard. Have Chen Quan make a trip to feel out that person's intentions. Since that person thinks so highly of Chen Quan, he should seize the opportunity. Your branch doesn't have close blood ties with ours. If Chen Quan truly likes my little Shui, I'll play matchmaker for the two kids when the time comes. It wouldn't be a bad thing. After saying that, Chen Xiefeng patted Chen Jiansheng's shoulder and walked away, leaving Chen Jiansheng standing there in a daze. Chen Quan thought he had hidden his crush on Chen Shui very well, but it couldn't escape the sharp eyes of the family elders. Chen Shui was named after her grandfather, Chen Xiefeng, which showed just how much he doted on this granddaughter. The fact that Chen Xiefeng proactively approved of Chen Quan and Chen Shui was something Chen Jiansheng had never dared to imagine before. Things having reached this point, although it was said to be because he valued Chen Quan, it was actually because Chen Quan had a connection with Lin Shi. Chen Jiansheng's eyes grew determined as he quickly headed home. He had to hurry and pick out some gifts for Chen Quan to bring to Lin Shi. As long as they could cling to Lin Shi's thick thigh, the father and son's position in the Chen family would be truly secure in the future. But when Chen Quan brought the carefully selected gifts from his old man to find Lin Shi, he discovered that Lin Shi was no longer there. There was only a note left on the door, gone for a stroll in the Amazon. Be back soon. It turned out Lin Shi couldn't wait around the base anymore and had quietly left. Chen Quan hurried home to tell his dad. Chen Jiansheng immediately went to find Chen Xiefeng. The Chen family anxiously searched for Lin Shi's whereabouts within the base. True to his note, He had left the Chun family base and headed to the Amazon, completely evading everyone's eyes in the base. This made the Chun family breathe a sigh of relief, but it also gave them a bit of a headache. The fact that Lin Shi left the base at this time showed that he didn't want to get involved in their internal power struggle. Therefore, the possibility of Lin Shi teaming up with Cassette definitely wouldn't happen. The headache was because Chun Tianxiong and Chun Lujia still hadn't returned. Lin Shi had entered the Amazon on his own without the family head's permission. They didn't know if the family head would punish them when he returned. In reality, they were worrying over nothing. Chun Tianxiong couldn't care less about punishing them right now. It was still unknown whether he would even make it back alive. The Amazon rainforest, once the world's largest green ecological zone, had now turned into a white hell. Lin Shi arrived at this place in the late afternoon. As soon as he reached the outskirts of the Amazon, he discovered many traces of origin beasts. The Amazon had an abundance of wildlife, and the number of animals that had evolved into origin beasts was also massive. This place didn't just have large mammals found all over the world. There were also amphibians and even insects that had absorbed origin power, survived, and rapidly multiplied on this land. Not only that, but Lin Shi also discovered a type of giant white tree on the outskirts. It wasn't just one tree, but an entire sprawling white forest with almost no end in sight. This place is more dangerous than I thought. Lin Shi waved his hand, and the Demon King and the other beasts appeared beside him. The sudden appearance of high-level origin beasts made the local origin beasts sense danger and quickly scatter. The feeling of being watched vanished. Same as usual. Gather back here before dark, Lin Shi ordered, adding, "Be careful." Xiao Bai led the wolf pack. With a howl, they charged into the white forest. The clouded leopard and its subordinates quickly dashed in another direction. The long-armed ape and tyrant also led their respective subordinates to strike. The four squads seemed to be coordinating their attacks, storming into the dense forest and beginning their slaughter. The originally silent white forest suddenly boiled over like hot oil meeting cold water. Only the Demon King, Hua Hua, and Ji holding Kika the rabbit remained by Lin Shi's side, waiting for orders in the space. Lin Shi quickly advanced toward this forest. The place once known as the green lungs of the earth was now covered in ice and snow. Deep within the white forest, Chun Tianxiong and his group were all haggard and battered. Originally 28 people, now only 12 remained, including Chun Tianxiong and Chun Lujia. Chun Lujia, who had gone to deliver the news to Chun Tianxiong, was currently being carried on the back of a Chun family member, completely unconscious. Family head, what do we do? Those things are tightening the encirclement. Our food is only enough for one more meal. At this rate, we'll be trapped here until we die. Those things are too smart. They know a head-on clash isn't to their advantage, so they're trying to starve us out. What cunning insects. Family head, Sixth Master still hasn't woken up. What should we do? Chun Tianxiong understood that the current situation was extremely critical. 2 years ago, not long after the Chun family base was established, they had faced a fairly large-scale beast tide. Relying on the 1,000-year foundation of their hidden clan, Chun Tianxiong had led his people to repel the beast tide. Afterward, he began systematically directing the purge of origin beasts in the cities surrounding the base to prevent another beast tide from occurring. After clearing the surrounding cities and former national territories, Chun Tianxiong turned his attention to the Amazon forest, which was famous for its massive number of creatures before the apocalypse. Very soon, his people discovered many traces of origin beast activity in this pre-apocalyptic Amazon rainforest. Because the base needed to develop rapidly at the time, coupled with the appearance of large areas of mutated plants in the Amazon region, almost none of the people Chun Tianxiong sent to infiltrate this area returned. Sensing the danger, Chun Tianxiong ordered a halt to the exploration, restricting activities to the outskirts. A year ago, Chun Tianxiong's people discovered members of the Li family sneaking around this area. In the end, they managed to intercept the mutated plant that the Li family had gone to great lengths to find deep in the Amazon. Relying on this mutated plant, Chun Tianxiong broke through to become a level 6 evolver. Over 2 months ago, Chun Tianxiong led his men here to wipe out all the origin beasts, because his people had discovered on the outskirts that recently The origin beasts in this white forest were becoming more active, increasingly moving outward. It was highly likely that a large number of origin beasts wanted to migrate from the central area. The Qin family base was located in South America. If this horde of origin beasts grew to a massive scale, it would pose a huge threat to the Qin family base. When Chun Tianxiong and his group first arrived here, they were careful. Step by step, they slowly advanced from the outside toward the center in a fan formation to exterminate the origin beasts. The number of origin beasts here was truly staggering, but most were only level 1 to level 4. To Chun Tianxiong, they posed absolutely no threat. But just as they slightly lowered their guard, Chun Tianxiong and his men suddenly realized that, without them knowing when, their paths forward and backward had been blocked by a terrifying creature. Chun Tianxiong never expected that in just 3 short years, this place had turned into a paradise for origin beasts and a forbidden zone for humanity. This terrifying creature was a type of white insect. They had white scales and were only the size of a hand. If one didn't look closely, it was easy to overlook their existence. This type of insect had the ability to block spiritual energy. In other words, from the very beginning, the entire group, including Chun Tianxiong, hadn't detected their presence at all. It wasn't until the number of origin beasts they encountered along the way dwindled to the point where none appeared anymore that Chun Tianxiong and the others realized they had been unknowingly surrounded by a massive swarm of insects. Most of these insects were only level 2 or 3, but their numbers were truly astronomical. Chun Tianxiong had tried leading his men to break out of the encirclement. The result? All they saw before them was a vast sea of white insects. They seemed to possess intelligence. Or more accurately, there was a high-level creature controlling them from behind. After discovering that Chun Tianxiong could kill them, the white insects only surrounded him from a distance, focusing the bulk of their attacks on the other Qin family members. In that breakout attempt, not only did Chun Tianxiong fail to get the 20-odd Qin family members out, but he also lost over 10 top fighters. This made him temporarily abandon the idea of continuing to break out, instead searching for another solution with everyone. 2 months passed. The medicine they brought was gone, and the origin beast meat they hunted along the way had been eaten clean. Now, trapped within the encirclement of white insects, they couldn't even hunt a low-level origin beast for food. Chun Tianxiong shook his head in despair and let out a bitter laugh. He originally thought that reaching level 6 would definitely allow him to sweep through this area. He never expected that 3 years later, this place would become so dangerous, turning into a forbidden zone for humanity. This was not good news for the Qin family base. Such danger was lurking right next door. Worse still, this time, for the sake of hunting origin beasts and nurturing the family's elites. The ones brought along were all young, exceptionally talented Chun family disciples with high martial arts skills. If they all perished here, it would be an incredibly heavy loss for the Qin family, leading to a break in the lineage of elites in this age group. Family head, why don't you take 6th master and leave? A clansman in his 30s suggested. Say no more. Until the very end, I absolutely will not leave, Chun Tianxiong stated in a deep voice. Initially, Chun Tianxiong had also thought about breaking out alone and then returning to save them. But these white insects were extremely cunning. The moment Chun Tianxiong moved more than 1,000 meters away from the others, they would immediately attack the remaining Qin family members. The Qin family base didn't have long-distance communication equipment. Otherwise, they would have sent a distress signal long ago. They couldn't contact the outside, and they couldn't bring people here. Even if they could, the base was currently full of elderly Qin family members who hadn't fought in years and had forgotten their combat experience. They would hardly be of any use and might just end up trapped here as well. Even Qin Lujia, who had come to deliver news a few days ago, was now stuck here. What made the situation even more dire was that there was also a high-level venomous snake with dizzying patterns hiding in the shadows in this area. It was that very snake that had bitten Qin Lujia, leaving him unconscious to this day. Chun Tianxiong knew this was the biggest crisis the Qin family base had faced since its establishment. Right now, it wasn't just Chun Tianxiong and the others who were in trouble. Even if they were lucky enough to escape this place, the danger from that white forest would sooner or later threaten the Qin family base. Chun Tianxiong felt a chill to the bottom of his heart. In his decades as the family head, this was the first time he felt despair. What should they do? In this desperate situation, it seemed the only way was to seek outside help, to find powerful assistance to turn the tide. But who could they ask for help? Chen Lujia had been severely injured and fell into a coma right after arriving, before he could even offer any support. Up until now, Chun Tianxiong and the others still had no idea that there was someone considered a level 6 evolver back at the base. Grumble, grumble. A Chen family member's stomach suddenly let out a strange noise. Everyone looked at him. For the past few days, to save food, everyone had only eaten enough to maintain basic survival. Simply put, no one was full. Chun Tianxiong sighed. Eat sparingly. The team had a medic who doubled as logistics, who was also the quietest person. Chen Sheng took out half a butchered, frozen beast from his backpack and placed it in front of Chen Tianxiong. Over a dozen people sharing half a beast. Normally, a single deboned beast leg was only enough for 2 or 3 people. Family head, this is all we have left. Let's divide it. Chun Tianxiong sighed again. Chen Sheng carved the meat evenly and distributed it to everyone. The others took the dark red meat and ate it raw. Damn it. To think I, Chen Wu, would die in this godforsaken place where birds don't even bother to shit. Dying as a hungry ghost and getting eaten by a bunch of bugs to boot. The one speaking was Chen Wu, the most heavily built middle-aged man in the group. Hearing Chen Wu's words, Chen Sheng frowned and glanced at him. Everyone knew Chen Sheng was always polite, loved traditional Xia country culture, and despised vulgar people. What? I'm about to die. Can't I even curse a little? I'm about to die. Do I still have to kiss your ass? Chen Wu shot back at Chen Sheng's sharp glare. Offending Chen Sheng meant he would torture you when bandaging your wounds. But Chen Wu wasn't afraid anymore. Chen Wu aggressively bit into a tough piece of meat, chewing and swallowing with difficulty. After dividing the meat evenly among everyone, Chen Sheng handed the largest piece, twice the size of anyone else's, to Chen Tianxiong. Chen Tianxiong shook his head. I won't eat. You guys eat. Family head, you need to keep your strength up to lead us out alive. High-level evolvers required vastly more energy than ordinary people. The higher the level, the easier it was to get hungry. Chen Tianxiong expended the most energy but ate the least. Chen Sheng knew that sooner or later, Chen Tianxiong wouldn't be able to hold on. When that happened, they would all die. The others urged anxiously. That's right, family head. Please eat a little. We can die, but you must survive. Chen Tianxiong's already aged face seemed to gain even more wrinkles. He took the meat, cut off a small piece, and ate it listlessly. Suddenly, Chen Tianxiong jolted. He dropped the meat. Something's coming. All the Chun family members stood up, ignoring the meat that fell into the snow, and drew their weapons. If the family head said something was coming, then something was definitely coming. Over the past 2 months, the family head had proven this countless times. Sure enough, very soon, they heard a rustling sound drawing closer. A white mass surged straight toward them like a tide. Looking closely, it wasn't a tide, but countless white armored insects, the size of a hand, with multiple tentacles and a ferocious appearance. It was those cunning insects. They're here again. These white insects didn't just use tactics. They constantly harassed them in waves, especially when they were eating or resting. This had caused everyone to eat poorly and sleep restlessly for days, wearing down their patience and endurance. They were truly incredibly cunning. Prepare for battle. Chen Tianxiong roared, drawing the origin weapon longsword from his back. A faint red glow flashed in his hand. Flames erupted from his palm, spreading across the blade. In the blink of an eye, the entire sword transformed into a blazing blade of fire. This was Chen Tianxiong's level 6 ability, bone-clinging raging flames. It could attach to anything. Except for specially crafted origin weapons, anything else it touched couldn't be extinguished until it was burned to ashes. Don't stray too far from me. Keep within a 5-meter radius. Chen Tianxiong barked at the others. Yes, family head. If they were too far away, Chen Tianxiong wouldn't be able to protect them. Very quickly, the insects charged. Chen Tianxiong swung his blade in a sweeping arc slash. Flash. Wherever the flaming blade passed, large numbers of white armored insects were sliced in half. The crackling sound of fire echoed continuously, and the air quickly filled with the stench of roasted insects. Many people here swallowed hard. The thing was, these insects were only completely incinerated by Chun Tianxiong's flames, and they contained neurotoxins. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so short on food. Someone was bitten on the calf, fresh blood streaming down. Looking closely, a fist-sized chunk of flesh was missing from his leg. Though the white armored insects were small, their attack power was terrifying. Just letting them get close meant a single bite could tear off a chunk of flesh. If they covered someone's entire body, they could bite a level 4 evolver to death in less than a minute. Hearing the scream, Chun Tianxiong immediately turned to help. Another sweeping slash cleared out a wave of white armored insects. Thanks to everyone's coordination, the ground was soon covered in insect corpses. But the white armored insects seemed endless, impossible to kill off completely. Gradually, the flames on Chun Tianxiong's blade weakened, but the onslaught of the white armored insects didn't stop at all. On the contrary, more and more of them swarmed toward them. Family head, I can't hold on anymore. In this life, I can't witness the Chun family's rise to glory with you. In my next life, I will definitely be a Chun family member again. After saying that, the man charged into the sea of insects and was engulfed in the blink of an eye. This sight made Chun Tianxiong's eyes practically split open with grief, but he was completely powerless to stop it. Days of continuous fighting had depleted their medicine, leaving them with no effective way to recover. Everyone's origin power was nearly exhausted. Perhaps these insects had sensed their weakness. Not only did they not harass and retreat as usual, but they attacked even more fiercely. Everyone, including Chun Tianxiong, was on the verge of collapse. Family head, continuing to protect us will only drag you down. Please, take the family's legacy and leave. Family head, don't worry about us. These insects won't let us go. Family head, Chun Tianxiong's face twisted in agony, but finally, his eyes turned resolute. Right at that moment, a voice rang out from above. Need some help? Chun Tianxiong looked up in shock, only to see a young man in white standing on a massive, bizarrely shaped greatsword, hovering in midair. Lin Shi looked down at the Chun family members fighting fiercely, meeting Chun Tianxiong's gaze. Chun Tianxiong remained calm in the face of danger. He only pondered for a split second before hastily saying, "Lend us a hand, and you will be handsomely rewarded." Hearing someone in the sky talking to Chun Tianxiong, the other Chun family members were astounded. Who was it? They could fly, and their spiritual energy couldn't even detect him. Everyone didn't dare to look up, keeping their heads down to slaughter the white armored insects. But someone couldn't suppress their curiosity and glanced up. Seeing Lin Shi's majestic appearance, Chen Wu was stunned for a second. In just that 1 second, several white armored insects took the opportunity to crawl onto his body, heading straight for his neck, his weakest point of defense. Watch out! Chen Sheng, in the middle of the crowd, saw this and shouted a warning. Careful! Chen Wu jolted, hastily reaching for his neck. But how could his speed match the biting speed of the insects? Chun Tianxiong had just been talking to Lin Shi. Turning back to save him was too late. In that life-or-death battle, even a level 6 evolver couldn't save Chen Wu, but a level 7 could. It takes long to describe, but it happened in a flash. Lin Shi controlled several streaks of cold light to shoot out. The white armored insects clinging to Chen Wu were sliced in half. Chen Wu was completely unharmed. Holy shit! Chun Tianxiong, Chen Sheng, and all the Chen family members were so shocked they blurted out curses. Immediately after, countless streaks of cold light rained down, slicing through the bodies of every single white armored insect. The number of cold lights was incredibly vast, matching the number of armored insects. Only Chen Sheng, who was protecting Chen Lujia, knew the origin of these cold lights. He saw with his own eyes Lin Shi in midair unleashing piece after piece of cold light, annihilating the armored insects. My God! Chen Sheng felt that in his 30 years of life, he had never seen such a fantastical sight. What kind of ability was this? The white armored insects came fast and left just as fast. After Lin Shi used his telekinesis to control thousands of metal shards, creating a rain of metal and leaving behind tens of thousands of insect corpses, the white armored insects, following their fierce assault, immediately retreated like a receding tide. All the Chen family members breathed a sigh of relief. Normally, Chun Tianxiong and the others wouldn't pursue them. With his level 6 ability, Chun Tianxiong could make his weapon emit flames, but he couldn't control it from a distance. The other Chen family members lacked long-range methods even more. They could only watch the white armored insects retreat, then surround them again from afar, draining their strength. But Lin Shi was different. When the white armored insects retreated, Lin Shi didn't stop his attack. Wherever they went, Lin Shi's metal shards chased them down, continuously slaughtering tens of thousands more. Chun Tianxiong and the others wanted to follow closely behind Lin Shi's metal storm to hunt down the armored insects. But the cold light in their eyes was like a giant meat grinder. Wherever it passed, insect corpses littered the ground. Compared to him, their pursuit was almost meaningless. The Chun family members looked at each other in astonishment. What kind of destructive power was this? What kind of heaven-defying ability was this? Was a level 6 evolver really this strong? No. Could a level 6 really do this? Many looked toward Chun Tianxiong, who had been here with them for 2 months and was nearly wiped out. Under that slaughter, the white armored insects retreated in complete disarray, then scattered like crazy. No, they were fleeing frantically. After being besieged by those white armored insects for so long, this was the first time the Chun family members had seen the swarm fall into chaos. They were helpless against the swarm, but in front of Lin Shi, they were just being unilaterally massacred. Lin Shi only stopped when those insects had completely scattered and escaped the range of his spiritual energy. He ceased his attack and recalled all the metal shards. The metal shards glinted under the sun and, in the blink of an eye, assembled into a square metal block that flew into the backpack behind Lin Shi. There was a brief moment of silence, until Chun Wu blurted out, unconsciously voicing everyone's thoughts. Is this guy even human? Cough, cough. Chun Tianxiong regained his composure and coughed lightly. Do not be disrespectful to the senior. Brother, thank you for lending a hand. I am the leader of the Chun family base. May I ask for your name? The Chun family base will definitely reward you handsomely for this. Chun Tianxiong bowed and cupped his fists toward Lin Shi. Lin Shi nodded slightly, descending from above. My name is Lin Shi. The corpses of these insects belong to me. You don't have any objections, do you? Lin Shi said in a rather unceremonious tone.